Good evening, everyone. Please take your seats. We're going to start this meeting momentarily. Welcome to the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque's Board of Trustees regular meeting, August 9th, 2023. I am Mayor Donald T. Lopez, and I want to welcome everybody to our meeting. If you wish to speak or comment on certain items on the agenda, you should have signed up to speak either prior to this meeting or on the sign-up sheets at the entrance. This will be your last opportunity to sign up. We will pick up the sign-up sheets, and only those individuals who have signed up will be allowed to speak. We ready, Danielle? I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is 7 p.m. exactly. This meeting is streamed on the village website. The public can also participate via Zoom. Instructions and overall public participation guidance for commenting is listed on the website and on page 5 of the meeting packet. The Village of Los Ranchos is providing the ability for the public to participate in hybrid meetings. As with any application, digital service, or software, the opportunity for failure can occur. Therefore, the village is not responsible for the inability to connect to the meeting either by Zoom meeting link or viewing via live stream. The meeting video and audio is recorded and will be available online after the meeting on the village website. At this time, I'm going to call the roll. Mayor Pro Tem and Trustee Sandra Pacheco is excused. Trustee Lewis.
Present.
Trustee Benavides.
Present.
Trustee Radnovich.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Item 3, I would like for the Boy Scouts to present the colors, and once they present the colors, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Come forward. Post the colors. Please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Boy Scouts, please come to the front, and I'm going to have you introduce yourselves. And just, I'm going to start on the right, and I'm going to go left. Tell us your name, what troop you're in, and maybe give us a 1 minute, what you like about the Boy Scouts, or pretty much anything you want to say. I'll start with you, young man. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. Face the crowd. Go ahead. And if you choose not to speak, it's okay.
Hello, my name is Trevor Oakley. I'm the SPL, and I like camping, activities, overall helping the community.
Thank you. Next person. Go ahead, sir.
I'm William. I'm in Troop 9. I have a SAR rank. I go to Volcano Vista High School, and I originally got into Scouts in kindergarten. I just always loved the camping, going camps, and all that kind of stuff. And one of my favorite things to do is snowboard.
Wow. Fantastic. Go ahead, sir.
I'm with Bulow. I'm second class, and one of the favorite things to do here is go on a camping trip.
Thank you.
My name is Caleb Brock. I'm second class if you round up. And my favorite thing about Scouts is probably all the opportunity it brings.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. You can head on out. I appreciate it. Good. We will now move to item 4, which is the approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve or amend the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I need a second.
I'll second.
I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 5, general public comment. Participants wishing to speak on topics that do not appear on the agenda will be given 3 minutes. No action can occur on these items. If you have questions, please feel free to contact staff during business hours. Danielle, please proceed by calling up individuals that signed up for general public comment.
Thank you, Mayor, and trustees. Our first individual is Mr. Matthew Beck. If you would, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. My name is Matt Beck. My address is 21st Plaza, Suite 725. That's Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87102. I come here tonight because I was brought to Mr. Craig's attention that item 8G on the agenda is the village attorney's report, which is the response to his July 19th letter laying out the Open Meetings Act violations by this body in the village. In the response, the village lays out 2 and perhaps 3 responses to the Open Meetings Act letter. The first is that the Metropolitan Redevelopment Code is to be liberally construed and, quote, grants the village broad powers, including the power to vary its typical approval process. It's on page 2 of the letter. That proposition is not true. It's not true as it relates to the plotting and zoning process, and you'll find it's not true in what's left out of that quotation. First, it says a local government. That is only this body or the village. It is not the village administrator. It is not the planning and zoning director. That they shall have all the powers necessary or convenient to carry out the MRC, including the power, and this is a quotation, to plan or replan, zone or rezone any part within the jurisdiction of the local government or make exceptions from building regulations. That does not say make exceptions from plotting and planning and zoning regulations. More important is what is left out of that provision. In 10:15, 10I, what is left out from that quotation in the village's response letter from the village attorney is the prefatory clause, which says, quote, in accordance with applicable law or ordinances to plan, replan, zone, or rezone. So the letter is wrong that the Metropolitan Redevelopment Code provides the board any power to vary its typical planning and zoning process. And it is certainly wrong to do it in the way that the village did. The delegation to the village administrator and planning zoning director violates the express provisions of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Code. It allows the local government to, quote, delegate the exercise of such powers. But it allows a local government to do so only to the Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency. That's a board, it's a committee of 5 persons that are on the Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency for 5 years, and it can only happen after an ordinance creates the Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency. That did not happen here. I listened to the October 2020 board meeting when the village attorney presented to you. She said that it was based on the palindrome agreement in Alvado. The Alvado agreement provides the authority to the Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency of Albuquerque, but it does not allow planning and zoning. It specifically says that plotting,
your final statement.
specifically says that plotting will be done by the appropriate government board and will be done by the Albuquerque Council only after it's submitted and approved by the MRA.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you. Danielle?
Thank you, Mr. Beck. Mr. Joe Craig?
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito Northwest. I would add to our Boy Scouts, I was a tenderfoot along with Roberto Chavez. I think it was 1961 in Los Ranchos de Albuquerque. We were one of the first Boy Scout troops. Pretty proud of it. I've got a great picture of us, and we're still around. So. I don't think so. So anyway, thank you to the Scouts. I mean, this is a great opportunity. I To follow up with that, as I spoke last night at our planning and zoning meeting, I swore an oath. Well, first of all, in 2004, I was asked by the mayor of Los Ranchos. I called him up 4 days after he had been elected and said, hey, I've got a great idea. Let's do some open space. And he said, oh, good. We got the Del Norte open space. He said, good. I said, great. He said, by the way, I've got another idea. Let's get the Agri-Nature Center, the Anderson Vineyard. We did that. I continue to help the village. We have incorporated in 2000, I believe, 18, and we continue to work to support our village. This is an important group to me, important group of friends. To finalize, I swore an oath in 2013 to support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the laws of this state, and faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of this office to the best of my ability. And to finish that off, I solemnly swear, so help me God. I continue to feel that oath guides me, and everything that I'm doing and will continue to do is in that oath. I don't think not leaving the Planning and Zoning Commission neglected that oath. I'm still bound by it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mel-Eves?
I was the Boy Scout once too,
Very good.
and I attended the first international Boy Scout Jamboree in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, in 1950. And I wouldn't trade that experience for anything, except maybe this. Your Honorable Mayor and trustees, going to make it quick. Shouldn't be any surprise to you.
Mr.
that the
Eves, before you go on, sorry, would you please?
Oops, Mel
Thank you.
Eves, John Mel Eves, 721 Chavez Road Northwest, 87107, 505-238-2751. As an attorney, the rule of law means a lot to me. And I'm passionate about it. And if I have the chance, I'll always try to see that it's enforced. The oath of office that you all took obligates you to do the same thing without equivocation. I'm going to remind you of that again before I close. What I want to speak to you this evening is that the documentary evidence to prove the village's violation of several major ordinances is in the records. It's indisputable. And you'll hear more about that later. But it is your duty as the governing body, as you know, to take all necessary actions to enforce those obligations. In fact, all of us depend on you to do that. Let me give you three major examples. Section 9.2.2, D, on D3, on matters reserved for the Board of Trustees, the Commission shall hold hearings and make recommendations to the Board of Trustees. The Board specifically reserves final action on applications for major subdivisions for plat approval and site development approvals and code changes. 9.1.7 on major subdivisions, it says upon recommendation of approval of the preliminary plat by the Commission, the subdivider will be scheduled for a hearing before the Board for approval of the final plat. 9.1.8a, no preliminary plat or final plat of a major subdivision shall be acted on without public hearing. I can tell you that on none of the plats was there a notice, was there a hearing, or was there approval by the Commission and the Board. On none of them. As we stand here today, there is no approved site development plan even though the project is well underway in violation of law that the village has done nothing about. I gave you a copy of July 29 letter, which I hope you'll read, from Tiffany Justice. On the second page, I've highlighted compliance with 9.1.5, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because I don't have time, but it says the administrative procedure that was set up by the mayor and his appointees is going to make the decisions on plats and on site development plans without public notice nor public hearing before the
Expired. Please give
commission.
your final statement. You have 10 seconds.
That's a violation. The village assisted Palindrome in making those violations. And I would ask you to reread your constitutional oath.
Thank you,
There
sir.
isn't, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eves. Mr. Randall Gins? Randall? If you would, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
No, when you start talking.
My name's Randall Gins. I live at 908 Green Valley Road, and I was born and raised in the North Valley. I have a couple of questions. Did you get the letter that I sent to the board this afternoon?
Yes.
And an opportunity to look at it?
Yes.
Good. Roughly, I was really disappointed on the chaos that I saw at the planning and zoning. It seemed like our commissioners were confused to who their constituents were and are, the village residents. One looked at us and said, the village residents aren't my concern. My concern is just looking at, and she said something that didn't make any sense. There was four main points that I wanted to bring up to you guys before they gave a pass recommendation because they didn't know what to do with an objection. And there was a lot of objections and they didn't know how to deal with them. So they said, well, we'll send it up to the trustees and let them work it out. That was their action. The four were the concern of open space would be managed. Who's going to manage this open space? That the project on Guadalupe and Chavez, the 9.2 acres, that they've that part of the deal is they want to give us 2.5 acres, and they're saying, well, the HOA is going to manage it. Well, it was brought up that there's some other issues that we need to go another couple layers deep to make sure that 2.5 acres, either the village needs to step up and say, we're going to pay for the management and maintenance of the project. If that's what you decide, well, so be it. Or we need to set something in place to make sure that the HOA of that subdivision, they're going to maintain that property and make it, maintain that property. Two, who will the property be deeded to? Is it going to be a deed restriction? And will that really hold? What happens down the road 10 years from now? All of you guys are gone. You're in Jamaica enjoying yourself and you don't have to put up with us. And they decide they want to sell the lot because the HOA is going under. What's going to prevent that? We couldn't get a straight answer with that. The third one is, there was questions on the design of the road going through the subdivision, and they said, well, you have to have an entrance and an exit separate. Well, that's not true. There are ways to provide single access in and out. There's a number of subdivisions in the village that have that. And I think the design, allowing people to come in right before the four-way stop on Chavez is a bad design.
Speaker's time has expired. Please give your final statement. You have 10 seconds.
And there was one other objection. I guess I started off with it, is that the commissioners that were sitting there don't have the experience to take on that responsibility.
Your time is up, sir.
The
Thank you.
speaker's time has expired.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity to share with you. I hope you look at it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Drew Taglia Pietro, if you would, please. Thank you. Julia Mummer? If you would, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees. I'm Julia Mummert. I live at 330 Vineyard Road Northwest, Los Ranchos, 87107. I have some notes because I'm not a seasoned speaker, public speaker. I have some pictures. Can I share those with you guys?
Absolutely.
You'll have to share amongst yourselves.
That's fine.
So we have lived on Vineyard for 20 years. We were active in getting the speed bumps that you experience now on Vineyard, and that was a huge fight, and we're a huge supporter of that. I could have gone just directly to the village, made a call about what you're seeing in here, but I wanted to come and talk and comment publicly, as I think that this entering Village Los Ranchos sign that you're seeing on Vineyard, that's about 10 yards from my home, shows really how the village feels about me, my family, my neighbors. It's tilted. It's got this dead tree behind it. It looks terrible. It is a blight. A small one at that, but it's a blight. And I'm sure it'll get fixed sooner or later, but it's been weeks. It's been weeks that it's been like that. My family and I, our neighbors, you know, we're good community members. We're taxpayers. We're good taxpayers. And maybe I should be encouraged that you guys have not been down our road with the other 100 people daily, big trucks, not little delivery vans, big trucks, coming down our road that really shouldn't be coming down our road. But it really does, for me and my neighbors, speak to how we really feel that we belong in the village, which is we don't feel like we belong. And I was at the meeting last night with the previous speaker and waited till the bitter end. And P&Z chairperson JT Mickelson, I think that's how you say his last name, basically left us with a message of, you can move out of the village. And that was, I mean, my face is probably getting red and I'm getting upset because that was a terrible message. I haven't been here as long as some of you have been here, but my children were raised in this home that we're in now, and we love it very much, and we love our neighbors. But what I also want to say is that the traffic on Vineyard is going to only get crazier with what's going on at 4th and Osuna. And I have completed the traffic study. I know that gets brought up a lot, but I think that's, you know, I know better. That's not gonna maybe go very far. And when I look at the traffic impact study or whatever it is that you guys have online, Vineyard's not even a consideration on that. Solar is, I think Willow is, we're probably not within the right yardage of it. And so that really kind of breaks my heart that we're not even considered. It's going to be a nightmare. So I really invite you to come to Vineyard. You're welcome to sit in the little cutout that's by our mailbox because we don't use that gate. It's on the east side of our property. Our dog may come visit you, and he's very friendly. His name is Jock. But spend some time. The time I'd recommend is rush hour morning and evening.
Your time has expired. Please give your final statement. You have 10 seconds.
Thank you, but you're very welcome to come and park a spell on Vineyard and see how bad it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Loretta Chavez-Smith.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. My name is Loretta Chavez-Smith. I live at 536 Chavez Road. It's not a road, it's Chavez Freeway in the village of Los Ranchos. My contention is, or my statement, or my nemesis, is we had 4th Street Vitalization Project Phase 2 public information meeting. This was on the website. This is public notice. And at the bottom of it, down here, it states that the project, it's at the bottom, the project will also include reducing the roadway to 1 lane in each direction with the center turning lane and constructing a landscaped roundabout at the El Pueblo Road intersection, stating that it is going to be built.
No, it's not.
No, wait a minute. This is
I know
public.
that, but it's not gonna happen.
Oh,
Okay? Go ahead, please.
okay, well, this is telling the public this is gonna happen. It's on the webs. I understand, Don, but let me finish, please.
Please, go right ahead.
This is stated
I understand.
publicly.
I understand.
And then,
Yeah.
now we're coming to our illustrious infrastructure capital improvements project. And it states now, may include a roundabout. Okay, now, advertised, not advertised. This is what's happening to our village. Two different messages. And then you say, go to our website, it's all there, all the information is correct. This is scary. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Ms. Gordine McKenzie. Gordine? You're going to decline? Ms. Nangeroni? If you would, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Anyway,
Thank you.
I was never a scout, but I do have a tender foot. So. I'm Nancy Nangeroni, 7315 Guadalupe Trail. Okay, a few general comments. Number one, Joe Craig. I read the attorney's response to the letter that was submitted on behalf of Joe Craig. And I just want to call out Joe for the selfless work that he's doing on behalf of our community. I know that some of you view him as your antagonist, but some of us view him as one of our heroes. Joe Craig has put himself forward at personal risk and continues to be a stalwart supporter of the village, who's done many good things for us. And I think some of the attacks in the attorney's letter were unwarranted. How he voted in the past has nothing to do with what's going on today. So that's Joe. I don't know how anyone can drive down, any village resident can drive down through the intersection of Osuna and 4th and not say, what the F? That is, the mass of buildings there is unlike anything else in this village, and people were not informed of this beforehand. This is a terrible thing. Mr. Mayor, this is going to be your legacy in this village, and it is not pretty. I believe that this is a result of many mistakes that have been made, but which remain unacknowledged, and it's unacknowledged mistakes that result in lawsuits. I would love to see us stop giving all of our money to lawyers. We're giving the village's money, we're giving the people's money, and we're going to keep doing it until we resolve this issue. So I beg trustees and Mr. Mayor, please don't let this keep going on, okay? You need to acknowledge that 3 stories of 204 housing units was never what the village wanted, okay? And that it's appearing there is an insult to the village. Now, one last little thing, Mr. Mayor. In your report, you mentioned the ICIP Town Hall priorities, and second to last, you mentioned the community center. But the community center, in that meeting that I attended and many others, got second most number of votes. And yet it comes up second to last on your list of about 15 things. And that seems to me to reflect the disconnect that we feel like we're seeing between your agenda, your
The speaker's time has expired.
mayor's
Please give your
agenda,
final statement. You have 10 seconds.
and what the village wants and what the village needs.
Thank you very much.
You're very gracious, sir. Thank you for listening
Speaker's
and
time has expired.
appreciate
Thank
the
you.
opportunity to speak.
Mr. David Montoya.
Hello, I'm David Montoya, 8831 4th Street, Northwest. I wanted to remind all of you that we are people that voted for you. We're your brain trust. I've walked I don't see a face here that I haven't voted for. And we walk the streets for you. And so when you hear some of this, it sounds angry, but really what it is disappointment. And I've been here over and over again, trying to get this board to consider paying yourself, paying the trustees, paying the mayor more money, because I sincerely feel that the gravity of the work that you're required to do with this project you've taken on, running and doing what I consider volunteer work, taken away from your family, is really not sufficient. I wouldn't do it. And that's why I haven't run for trustee. But again, I've supported all of you and the mayor many, many times. So I just want you to think about this, because we rush and make decisions and we don't have the time to take away from our families, to take away from your work. We want people here that actually work and not just are retired, so that they can actually do the work that's required. These people may seem angry, but they're your brain trust. So listen to them, because there is a lot of wisdom here. Big decisions to go to big committees, to have time to evaluate and have a lot of public input, and not just done on the rush. But I thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a gentleman by the name of Frank, and I apologize, I didn't get the last name. Thank you. If you would, please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Sure. My name is Frank Reinow. I live at 1144 Ortega Northwest, 87114. Mr. Mayor, trustees, fellow residents, I'm here to talk about some of the results of the meeting last night with the P&Z meeting, at the P&Z meeting. There was a lot of discussion, insightful questions on both sides, both from the commission as well as from those of us in attendance. And as stated earlier, however, I think that there was still a lot of confusion about what's going on the project at Guadalupe and Chavez Road. What seems to me to be the issue that we just have not been able to confront is just the stated confusion about what's going on and about what should happen. I fail to understand the logic behind this project. Ostensibly, this project was aimed specifically at providing a place for our residents who are going to be able to retire with an affordable home. At the same time, it was also aimed at attracting young professionals who also are looking for an affordable home. The question that I have is, who can afford it? There are 16 lots. Each lot is 0.35 acres with an additional 2.5 acres of open space. And to the goodness of it that occurred last night with the commission, they recommended that that space be put aside in perpetuity as wetland. The issue, however, is that there's still confusion over how the FAAR is ever going to be able to resolve when you have homes that could be anywhere from 2,000 square feet to 6,000 square feet on 0.35 acres. And last night, I quote the developer who said, "This is what the people want." My question is, what people? What people? For both retirees and for young families wishing to move to this village, they'd have difficulty. I have a son, his wife, we have 4 lovely grandchildren that would be able to afford it, but what is the area available on a lot of 0.35 acres for someone to have kids and be able to use that area as something beyond a place to sit down? So, also at the meeting last night.
Please give your final statement. You have
Sure.
10 seconds.
Well, again, to end the discussion, what appears to me to be happening, the reality is that we have a gated community that's going to be open to anyone. That does not reflect your decisions on how this is going to be resolved.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Randy McKee?
I'm Randy McKee. I live at 749 Chavez Road, Northwest. Honorable Mayor, trustees, good evening. My comments are in regard to the planning and zoning meeting last night. While watching that meeting and listening to the comments being made by the commissioners and the chairman of the commission of the commission, it's clear to me that they did not understand their role in the process that is the CCP or CPP approval. They were confused. They stated it. They let us know clearly that they did not know what their role was. It was also clear that they were concerned what the open space set aside would end up being and how it might end up being disregarded in the future because it was managed by an HOA. They were also quite confused about the FAR and how it would be managed. This is concerning to us all. It was clear that they were confused. That's no way to be running a government. That is not good government. It is not. The developer made many claims last night. One of them was, this is going to bring a lot of money into the village under the property tax increases. That's not true. We don't get our money from property taxes. We were very concerned as we listened to that last night, and I think that we're just not being listened to. You've heard from the many hundreds of homeowners and villagers over the last year and their concerns. You've listened to they do not want this development. They do not want it in the form that it is. We urge you to be rethinking that. We don't want to say that you turned a deaf ear to us. We want you to listen. You are moving fast in this direction. 209 new families at Palindrome, 16 new families in the Guadalupe Chavez development, 12 new families in the Injimin development area. That's 237 new resident families in this village. You're increasing this village in 2 years by 25%. That is not good when you have not taken into the consideration the needs of the infrastructure that have to be in place. Our roads are a mess. Our roads are a mess. The rainwater runoff is in everybody's driveways and their garages. People are really crazy. Stop this wanton development. Rethink this. Lastly, I'd like to make a comment on on all the commissioners' comments last night. They were very rude. At being told we can move out, being told they don't regard us, and then about a year ago, one of them told us that they did their job. They did their job by moving businesses into the residential district.
Please give your final statement. You have 10
They
seconds.
are not serving us. We need better commissioners. We need better government.
Thank you, Mr. McKee. And Mayor and trustees, we're going to go ahead and transition over to our hybrid. Oh, I'm sorry. Sure.
Go forward.
Absolutely. If you would, Gordine, please state your name and address.
Gordine McKenzie, 7315 Guadalupe Trail. I just wanted to
think a little bit about some of the decisions that have been made and also the impact that it's going to have not only on us as residents, which is going to be profound, but we say that we're doing affordable housing, yet there are only, for 204 units, there are only a little over 100 parking places. How are those people, if we care about affordable housing, how are those people going to get their groceries in? How are they going to bring things in if they can't bring a car in? There's the assumption that they're going to all take buses, but we know most people have at least 2 cars if you have a working family with 2 cars. I don't understand why that decision was made, and it's going to have a profound impact. Also, if we want affordable housing, why would we stuff everyone in one area and not integrate them into the village and treat them humanely, but stigmatize them in the middle of what I think may be Disneyland, that they can't afford to eat any of the food or anything? And I think that it is ill-conceived and not thought through like most things. And I do want to say, I know that Guadalupe Trail is on the list for some things, as well as many of my neighbors' streets. On Guadalupe Trail, we do not want anything done to it. We have runners from all over the city and state that come down Guadalupe Trail because it's not all black-topped and hot. And just the other day, horses were coming down the street. People go in the dirt areas. We do not want the village to be all cemented over and looking like a horrific urban jungle. That is not why we live in the village, and that is not the kind of village that we want. We want to slow down. We did not, as residents, pick 4th Street or the second phase, the second phase of 4th Street, or the Chavez Trail. Many of us do not want it, but it's like a fast-moving train that is running over us. And I ask you, please, let's consider, let's all sit down and hear the costs to the residents, the wildlife, and nature before it is all gone. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to go ahead and transition to our hybrid participant who will be coming on from Zoom, Ms. Judith Gray. Gray.
Yes, hello.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Judith Gray, and I live at 435 El Paradiso Road, Northwest. And I'm here to express my support for the Village Center project and to give you my reasons. First, by way of introduction, I am new in town. My wife and I bought our house in 2022 after several years of visiting and exploring the Albuquerque area. When we discovered Los Ranchos in 2021, we immediately fell in love. And I'm sure you can understand why. We wanted to know more about how the area might develop, so we went to Town Hall and got a zoning map, and we were directed to the Los Ranchos Master Plan online. When we saw the Village Center project, we were excited that the village was doing such a smart project. Creating this type of development, especially the housing, is the best way to preserve the lower density rural character in the surrounding area. Adding more residents in this area will also be great for local businesses, not just new businesses, but many of the existing storefronts on 4th Street are vacant, and some that are operating have very limited hours or are by appointment only. I also look forward to seeing the sidewalks being improved as part of the development. I want to be able to walk safely and comfortably along 4th Street to support the local businesses. Finally, we have a housing crisis in this country. We need more housing that is affordable to more people. Sorry, that's my dog. I'm gonna make him wait. This isn't really low-income housing. This is aimed at folks who make about $45,000 a year. So I did a quick search to see who makes $45,000 a year in Bernalillo County. So some of the jobs are vocational nurse, HVAC technician, MVD agents, TSA officers, or a banker at the Bank of Albuquerque. These are people who help us every day. It will be great to provide opportunities for them to live in this great community. Again, it's a smart project. When we found our home, I could hardly believe that I could have half an acre lot so close to the acequias and work in agriculture and still be able to walk to get coffee, to do shopping, and to go to local restaurants. Seeing the smart planning for the Village Center, along with the great improvements on 4th Street, that really clinched our decision to make Los Ranchos our home. I want to thank you for your time and for your service. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mayor and trustees, with that, that concludes public comment.
We move to item 6, presentations. A presentation from Los Ranchos Elementary School. Ms. Cindy Smith, the Community School Coordinator of Los Ranchos Elementary. Please state your name and your address.
Good evening, everyone. As the mayor said, my name is Cindy Smith. I'm the Community School Coordinator from Los Ranchos Elementary School, 7609 4th Street Northwest. In the fall of 2022, Los Ranchos Elementary, in partnership with the City of Albuquerque, the Village of Los Ranchos, and Albuquerque Public Schools, began creating a series of collaborations between our school and local city, county, and state resources by generating an integrated focus on academic, health, and social services, youth and community development, along with community engagement. This will in turn lead to improved student learning, stronger families, and healthier communities. Our school and partners will join forces in offering a wide range of support services along with various community opportunities that will help improve and create more opportunities for our students, staff, and families, and community members. The outcome is for our students to succeed academically, to be physically, socially, and emotionally healthy, and to live and learn in a safe, supportive, stable environment where our community is a desirable place to live. One of the great pleasures of my job is to work with a wide variety of community contributors, donors, and partners. One of our latest partners, Busy Bee Yogurt, for example, provided 55 of our students who had met or exceeded their stretch goals in reading or math with free Dirty Worm frozen blizzard treats. And Miss Kathy did an awesome job, and the portions were just wonderful for them, and the kids were so excited. The Lavender Village grant we received last year, for example, also supported our 5th grade classes with additional hands-on science projects and a field trip to the North Valley Organic Farm. This year, we've also received grants, the first of what will be 5 grants from the New Mexico Department of Higher Ed to help sustain our community school initiative. Part of my job that I also enjoy very much is offering a class, a nutrition and gardening class during our Genius Hour, which takes part in the last part of our school day. And it wouldn't have been as successful as it was without the help of Mr. Josh O'Halloran and Dominic from the Agriculture and Nature Center. Every Tuesday, Josh and Dom would bring plants and seeds and help the students plant those seeds and grow their own plants, talk about the history of agriculture in our village, and the kids really loved it when they brought some baby ducks and rabbits and chicks for the students to enjoy. Now, and they're looking forward to that return as well, Mr. Josh. They've already asked me, is Mr. Josh coming back? Is Mr. Josh coming back? Mr. Dom, are they coming back? So they're all ready to go for Genius Hour next week. And also, this year, we have a dedicated space for our families, which we call our family room. And in this room, our parents and community members will be able to take parenting classes, financial literacy classes, ESL classes, come and for our coffee talks with our counselor and principals. And also, we'll be able to offer ESL classes as well. We're very excited that our garden, our long-term plan, and we hope to break ground this year for our community school garden, which will be at the very front of the school, that once we get the vegetables and plants and herbs growing, any community member, any family member will be able to come and help themselves to those wonderful items. We're also looking forward again to having our students participate with the Oasis tutoring program. And we really want our school, and again, the goal of the overarching goal, one of the overarching goals of a community school is to become a one-stop shop for community services. So again, part of my job will be to bring in PNM, New Mexico Gas, other community businesses and partners that can meet with families, help address their concerns, and help them out however they can. And we'll also be able to offer some social and emotional support workshops for our families as well. We are looking forward to our open house coming later, and we don't have that date yet, but we certainly encourage you all to attend there, as well as any of our upcoming family and engagement nights, where our families come and again interact with a wide variety of businesses, college representatives, and they're just Sandia National Laboratory will come and do a math night full of activities, or a science night as well. So we've got much more to come as well this year for one new addition this year through a grant through the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County After School Activity Program. We'll be offering 4 to 5 different clubs this year that will be meeting after school, and our students are very excited about that as well. So you're always welcome to come and visit our community school programs, and we thank you, Mayor, and the community for all of your support. And we look forward to even greater things to come. And
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Thank you very, very much.
to the best of my ability.
Well, I think so. How many questions are out there for Ms. Smith?
I have one.
Go ahead, David.
Well, I went to Ranchos, and so did my mother and family, but I just wondered, they used to have the playground open years ago, and it's been locked for a number of years, and I'm wondering if that can be reopened, or is that?
That would actually probably, my best guess would that would be up to Albuquerque Public Schools. That wouldn't be a decision that independently we could make, which is another reason why we're planting our garden out in the front, so that the community and our families will have free access to that as well.
So it may not be able to be open.
Not unless there's something that would change with APS policy in terms of helping to keep our students safe.
Security, David, that's what it is. I've been told it's security. That's what I've been told.
I used to take the kids there.
I know.
Yeah.
So did I.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
Okay.
I think we have, yes, Loretta, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you so much. My great-granddaughter goes there, and she absolutely loves it. And the teachers are great. The community feeling that I got from that school is awesome. So, great job.
Thank you.
Seriously, great job.
Thank you very much.
We have one more back there.
We currently, staff comes at 7:05 a.m. in the morning, which is a bit challenging, but we're doing it. We're doing it so far. The students buses begin arriving anywhere between 8 and 8:25 when the first bell rings. And the students are also, during that time when they're dropped off by their parents or from the bus, they can go to the cafeteria and receive a free breakfast. If they miss the breakfast in the cafeteria, they'll have it in opportunity to have it in their classroom. And we do this Genius Hour is starting at 2:35 to 3:30, and school dismisses at 3:30.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, very, very much. At this time, we're going to move to item 7, approval of the minutes of the July 12th, 2023 regular meeting. I need a motion to approve the July 12th minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 12th minutes.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Departmental reports.
Hold on, Mayor.
Yes.
I do have a.
Go right ahead.
a
Go right ahead.
correction.
Absolutely.
I distinctly remember last month asking Mr. Pacheco some questions about his development, and I don't see my questions in here, so I just.
Trustee Ranovich, some of those comments were made after the floor was closed, so those were not included
Correct.
in the minutes. So once we close the floor or take a vote, the floor is closed.
So, for instance, me asking this question right now is
Correct.
closed. So when is the time that we,
When we go into discussion, so after
weren't asked to go
the,
into
after
discussion.
Well, we
the,
haven't gone to discussion because it's not in here, but if you want to have discussion, we can certainly have it.
yes, it's right
This
after
floor is
we,
not closed for comment right now.
after we have a second, then we can go
Then you
into
can go
discussion,
right
but
into
before
discussion.
we vote.
after we have a second
That's
is
correct.
when we need to bring?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're now going to move into departmental reports. Departmental reports are included in the packet and reflect all the activities as listed. Ms. Rinaldi would like to expand on her report. Would you please come forward, Ms. Rinaldi?
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. A couple of highlights that I wasn't able to put into the report because it was due prior to some actions that occurred in my purview. We held the second public information meeting on project aesthetics on August 1st here on the evening, and we had 31 people in attendance. We received 11 comments relative to the public information that was put out. The presentation is now on the website for people to view, and the comment card is attached and can be submitted in regards to that presentation. So if you haven't had a chance to look at it, I would recommend that you look at it. And if you have any questions about it, please feel free to ask me, email me, or give me a call. The next meeting will be an open house format, 2 days, September 19th and September 20th. And we will be inviting businesses, tenants, property owners within the next phases of 4th Street to come and see the design adjacent to their properties and discuss any potential impacts or any special circumstances such as driveway access or uses that are not obvious to us based on the context and the environment now. So we will be putting out that public notice in the next week to 10 days and making every effort to contact all property owners to be impacted and asking them to come in over that period of time. We'll have the current design set, which is at about 60% now, so that we can show them exactly what to expect in front of their property and immediate impacts. We continue coordination with utilities. We have received all the notices of impacts from all utilities, and the next phase is scheduled for relocation and replacement of utilities in the subsequent phases of 4th Street. The big one is the utility authority. They will be replacing their water, sewer, and fire suppression lines, the same as they did in the first phase. So that's almost an entire utility phase pre-construction of our construction, very much like the first phase as well. And we're continuing to coordinate those efforts, and I'll have some more to report on that in late fall. We have coordinated with ABQ Ride on the bus stop locations and the potential changes in services that they see in the next 5 to 10 years within the corridor. We have coordinated with APS on the schools to be impacted, and we have provided design sets for their real estate department division to look at, and we will continue to coordinate with them. And we have coordinated with the U.S. Postal Service. The last thing that's happened since the last reporting is that we have completed the Phase 1 environmental assessment, and the hazardous materials report shows there are no hazardous materials within the construction zone. As you know, from the 30% design, we did the habitats, environmental habitats, protected species, and cultural assets, and found no impacts as well in those reports. There were a lot of comments that did not make it into the written comments that we requested of people in the public information. And I would encourage people who were there, that meeting was not recorded, so we don't have an actual recording of comments that were made. That's why we asked people to do the written comments. So if you were at that meeting and you have yet to put your comments in writing, we would really appreciate it. One of the biggest comments is an issue that aesthetic-wise is there are people, there seems to be no neutral territory when it comes to the Cantonary string lights. People seem to either really like them or really dislike them. And we'd like some more comments on that specifically. And we will make every effort to address comments that are written and comments that we know that we've received as well. One of the big issues about the lights was whether or not it meets the dark skies requirements. And it was stated in that meeting that it does, that they do. And that was actually an issue that was discussed in the Board of Trustees when Trustee Pablo Rael was here. He was one of the first people to bring up that issue. And we actually had it reviewed by Planning and Zoning. We had it reviewed by the design team of the project. And we actually had a legal opinion on that. And basically what it comes down to is that dark skies, state statute, ordinance, whatever the applicable regulation is, whether at the state, national, state, or local level, it doesn't apply to those lights. They are considered dark skies compliant based on the wattage of the bulbs and the lumens. And this is true. This is true. We have our designer right here. We have the legal opinion. They do, in fact, comply with dark skies. That's not to say that additional improvements could not be made. One of the big issues seems to be the upward light pollution. There are products that are Cantonary string lights that have shields or have globes that have some sort of frosted barrier. There's a whole number of things. So I just wanted to reassure people that we're looking into all of that. But if you didn't write your comments down, please write them down and submit them.
Is it too late?
No, up until August 15th, and we'll take them. We'll continue to take them as long as we receive them, if they're specific to that topic of the aesthetics related to the public information that was put out in that meeting, please. Okay, and there'll be other opportunities when we get to 90% design, when we get to the discussions about the roundabouts, when we get to all of those big item issues, there will be additional public information meetings. Okay? Yes, I just wanted to clarify a couple of things on that. So, no hazardous materials found. That's one report done and off of the list of engineering document requirements. Okay, on to Agri-Nature Center improvements. All of our legislative appropriations are being closed out. We have a small balance of unexpended funds on the roadway project that will be expended on either the outdoor classroom or other equipment Joshua and his staff deem necessary, so that when we go to the legislative session this year, we have no outstanding legislative appropriations. Roadway improvements, it's only a matter of electrification of the keypad on the gate. So that project is almost done, will be completed by the end of August. Tomorrow was the official deadline of that, but there were a few days by change order when we changed the gate out. And the outdoor classroom, materials on site, utilities have been extended, and that is anticipated to be completed by the end of this month as well. Roadway improvements project, we have pending revised estimates. Now, last board meeting, you all approved the agreement for improvements on various roads throughout the village, and we are just waiting to receive revised estimates now that the funds have been accepted so that we can submit that and have permission to proceed with the environmental and cultural impact investigations on those roadways. Chavez Road Multi-Use Trail Project, we have our final quotes on the raised crosswalks, and it is just a matter of getting our contractor to schedule it. That seems to be the biggest issue with construction projects at this point in time. If you can get the materials through the supply chain, then the next hurdle is getting it on the schedule with so many projects backed up in the pipeline. So we're working on trying to get that expedited. As far as the Chavez Road Multi-Use Trail Project goes, the topographic survey is complete and the right-of-way investigations are ongoing. The subsurface utility engineering investigation and environmental work will be underway shortly. Within the next couple of weeks, I'll have something to report on that in the next report. And the first public information meeting on that project where we can discuss potential alternatives based on the survey results will be before the end of this summer. And the last thing I want to report on quickly is the comprehensive transportation analysis. We have some updated counts on survey. People are answering the survey, and we encourage anyone who hasn't done that to do that. A couple of people have encountered some issues, and Tyler Pennington, who's one of the design consultants on the project, is really good at helping people get into that program. If you have issues, there's an ability to send an email, and he will respond and help and walk you through it. So at this point in time, we have 116 survey forms complete. We have, at the Lavender Festival, we had 65 residents or immediate area users of the roadway system in Los Ranchos use the pinpoint demographic information on the display there at Lavender Festival. So people are responding to the request to participate in this. So hopefully we'll have not just data, but we'll have people's perceptions of what levels of traffic exist in the village and what is an acceptable level from their perspective. And I will stand for any questions if you have any.
Do the trustees have any questions for Ms. Rinaldi? I'm going to go trustee by trustee. Trustee Lewis.
I do not.
Trustee Benavides.
Yeah, I think I have a few, just mostly clarification. Page 36, bottom of the page, the engineer's estimate for Phase 2A, Pueblo Solano to Ranchitos is basically 8.97 million. The question is, that does not include right-of-way, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Right-of-way investigations are beginning now in September. We have identified some potential areas for stormwater, and should a roundabout be part of the final project, we've identified some small sections of right-of-way at the intersection of El Pueblo. So what we're doing now is what the consultant is doing is looking at price valuations in the area to come up with an estimated cost of right-of-way acquisition. And we have $1 million of funding specific for right-of-way.
Okay, all right, and we'll get an estimate, see if we can cover that, right?
That is correct, trustee.
Okay, let's see, next question. Yeah, so I did look at your slides, and those were very helpful. And I saw something on there that about phase, I think it was phase 2B. There was 6.6 million of federal funding allocated for that part. So I found it interesting that there was more money for 2B than there is for 2A, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I did see that correctly, okay.
Yes, I'm happy to explain that.
Okay, sure.
Mayor, trustee, members of the audience, we have what's called transportation project funds from NMDOT that was specifically set up in the state legislature 3 years ago to fund local roadway projects that weren't part of the state or federal highway system. It was perfect for us. These are village roads. We applied for almost $900,000 and were successful. That is what is paying for the engineering of the phase. It paid for 30% design, and now it's paying for 100% design. We then submitted an application for the 1.5 million for construction funding, trying to put the pieces of construction funding together. That legislation, enabling legislation, does not allow you to mix state and federal funds. So it's kind of a barrier at the moment, and we have some potential fixes for that. But, so the 6.5 million in outline years 26 and beyond, that's Federal Highway Administration money that we had a successful application. Most recently, you heard about that. That can't be mixed with state money, and because of the expiration dates of such, it's going to be, we're working on a couple of different angles with NMDOT, through the COG, and with Federal Highway Administrations to see if there's a resolution that may allow us. There's any number of scenarios, but there's a potential that the Phase 2B federal money could be switched. There's a couple of other, until I investigate them further and have some answers to some significant questions, but as it stands right now, we have almost 3 million on Phase 1, and we have almost 7 million on Phase 2. Yeah. That's just the way that it's working out. And when you're trying to put these projects together that are $27 million, you don't want to turn any money down, but sometimes that money comes with yes.
Go ahead, trustee Benavides.
Next question, project cost benefit analysis. I assume that must be a requirement, and there's money to pay for that anyway. I mean, it sounds a little bit silly because, I mean, we know what the cost is, right? We know what the benefit is, right? But that's just a requirement, is that the deal?
Mayor, trustee Benavides, yes, it's a very specific cost-benefit analysis formula based on all of your socioeconomic demographics, the cost of the project, the impact immediately in your area, impacts on regional transportation systems. And we've found it to often be a requirement of large federal pots of money.
Final thing is about the Chavez Road Multi-Use Trail Project. So I'm looking at the preliminary engineering right-of-way survey, right-of-way acquisition, the completion date of July 31st, 2025. That's correct, right?
That is correct.
So it's just a reminder that this is a long project.
Mayor, trustee Benavides, this is a very long project.
Yeah.
We have no design for construction. We have no money for construction. We actually turned down the opportunity to secure construction funds because we don't even know what the constructability of this project is until we know the parameters of the right-of-way, what the underground utility conditions are, and what it is that people want. This is all preliminary engineering to this point. We will not even seek construction funds till this phase is complete.
That's all I have from Maria.
Trustee Radnovich, your turn.
I just had one question, Maria. I was talking to the engineer on the county's project on 4th Street, and he was worried that we weren't matching their road section. And I just wondered if you could explain that a bit.
Certainly.
It was specifically about bike lanes.
Certainly, Mayor, trustee Radnovich, we obviously had never put bike lanes per the 4th Street revitalization plan. Bike lanes were never identified through the village. That was just a decision that was made several years ago. Bernalillo County didn't even discuss with us what their design alternative was when they secured their funding. So there's that. Two, I don't know who the engineer who's working on this project, Lou Wilson, is Audrey, I want to say Benavides, but I'm sorry, I'm not sure. It's a woman, so I don't know who it is that would have told you that.
It was actually a county engineer.
The county planner?
It was Richard.
Oh,
and it was
Richard Meadows
also-
is a county
and it was
planner.
also the Assistant Director of Public Works for the county.
So we are coordinating with them. They've always known that our project does not include bike lanes, and we will be accommodating a connection at a logical termination of bike lanes within the village, which means part of our northernmost section will not just be pedestrian, but will accommodate bicycles on a multi-use trail sort of facility to the point where that connects. So there's going to be a hybridization of the design in that area, and we are coordinating on a monthly basis with Bernalillo County and an MDOT funder of both projects.
That's my only question.
Thank you, George. If the governing body has questions on any of the remaining departmental reports, we will have each trustee ask all of their questions. We move to the next trustee. I am going to start with trustee George Radnovich.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that I saw in your report, Mayor, was a list of, and I'll get into this more when we discuss it later in the meeting, but a list of the ICIP projects.
Yes.
Can we include the votes that people gave in the public meeting for that before we make a decision on this?
I think so, but I'd like for Ann Simon to discuss the nature of this list and try to maybe help me answer that question. Go ahead, Ann.
Sure, Mayor and trustees. I know we're going to talk more about this when we get to the item, so we might want to wait.
We could.
I have all of the votes, and all of the projects are included in the ICIP, every single one of them. So nothing is excluded, just so you know.
We'll talk about it later. I'm just commenting at this point.
Of course.
On yours, Ann. I really enjoyed myself at the Lavender Fest. I had a great time the night before, and the Lavender Fest was really good from a lot of perspectives. However, having walked probably a mile and a half myself, we really need to, in my opinion, fix the Lavender Fest. There were a lot of people there, more people than that park can hold, and I think we ought to consider moving it somewhere. The parking was just atrocious. I mean, people were parked almost down to Chamizal, and it's just crazy. So while I think it was you mentioned it was a giant success with 10,000 people, depends on how you look at it, right? There were a lot of people there for sure, probably more than that park could hold. One of the things I also wanted to note was in the barn, it was unsafe in my opinion, because there was a point where I was trying to get out of the barn with some friends and we could not move. We just could not move. So if there was a fire in that barn, anything like that, it would have been really bad. So I think we either need to consider moving it and it's a great festival. I think it's awesome. Love it. I'm not suggesting we stop it, but I think we need to worry about safety
Trustee
at this point.
Radovich, there are some ideas out there to move the Lavender Festival to another site that would be significantly better. And we'll have that discussion, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
This is for Josh. Josh, I just wanted to comment on the, on you guys selling lavender to local vendors so that they could make a little money on what we're growing as a community. So I think that was I just wanted to commend you on that. That's really great. There's more, sorry. I'm really happy that you're, none of it's bad. I wanted to also commend you on meeting with Los Poblanos for their fall lecture series. It's great. I think that we're talking to some of our neighbors in the vicinity of the Agri-Nature Center about things that matter to all of us. And I thought that was a really, I didn't know about that, and I'm really happy that you did that. Also, I wanted to commend you on the annual bike tour of the farms in the village, and I'm looking forward to participating in that on October 1st. On your, I don't know which bullet it is, I can't see it from where I'm looking, but it says investigate the feasibility of harvesting grain by hand versus the small scale combine to see at what size the mechanization becomes necessary economically for farmers. How did that go? Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Trustee Vadnovich, trustees. We were growing 2 acres of grain this year, and we decided to do our wheat plot, which was about a half an acre hand scale, and the rest of it mechanized. Okay. And with the half acre of wheat, harvesting hand scale a half acre, because then the harvesting wasn't that bad. It went fairly well. It's the threshing, then the winnowing, and then the cleaning. That process, we still haven't finished.
Wow.
We are almost done. We have about 4 sheaves left. Oh but it's quite the process. The rest of it, what we used was a small combine sort of equipment that came from China. It's a rice picker. It belongs to a farmer up in Velarde, just north of Espanola. And he came down, put it on a trailer and brought it down, and was able to harvest about 1.5 acres in about 6 hours. And then it comes out clean. That piece of equipment was about $10,000, $10,000 to $12,000 is what it runs. Now, you can't find a small combine in this country anymore because they stopped making them back in the 60s. What they have now is plot combines for anything from the 2 to 5 acre range. That's kind of that. What kind? A plot combine. And that's that 2 to 5 acre range where it's too big for hand scale equipment, too small to turn around a regular size combine in the field and to use that. So a plot combine, but those are all new. There's not used equipment available yet. They're just developed in the past 10 years or so, and those range about $100,000. So those are kind of what we've found over this process is looking at all that equipment, looking what's available, and trying to help farmers in that 2 to 5 acre range who may want to do grain and what might be available for them, or whether we go through a broker and bringing something in from China. So
interesting. Well, that's really good information, good knowledge you discovered by doing that. That's great. The Nature Niños I thought was awesome, that dance party to remove the seed from the grain. I just think I would pay money to see photos of that. It looked great. What is an electric polywire?
Electric polywire, Mayor, trustees, electric polywire is it's the electrified fence for
for keeping
for livestock.
Animals. I see.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything more for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Josh. Let's see. I don't think I had much more. Something in Maida's report, and I know Sandy's going to be doing that now, or maybe you're going to be working on it too, Ann. I'd love to see a list of all of the bed and breakfasts. I noticed there was one more bed and breakfast, and this is one of my interests. I noticed there was one more bed and breakfast approved by P&Z, and so I just want to get a count of that and see where we are in the total number. Because again, I'd like to bring it to the trustees at some point in the future. through Maria's. Fred, I just had a couple of questions, Fred. I noticed that there were some, at the shopping center at Fourth and Ranchitos, there were some landlord and tenant issues.
Yes.
That was just a, like a dispute between landlord and tenant?
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, it was a concern with the landlord that the person renting it didn't have a business license, and there were some other things going on back and forth. And so what we did is found out if the individual had a business license or not. Found out they didn't, got them to get their business license, and then I told him, the landlord, that, you know, the landlord tenant, they're gonna have to deal with that. It had nothing to do with the village at that point, but we could make sure that they had a business license.
I see, thank you. On the car cruising club on Fourth Street, I personally think that's just a great thing that they come and cruise and have an event on Fourth Street. Were people upset, or was there something negative about it or positive?
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, we've had several complaints from residents about the noise and the traffic and everything. Those are very loosely organized groups that come in. I have reached out to a couple of them in the last few days and basically told them that the village would really like to partner with them because it is bringing a lot of the people and the businesses and things that are going on. But we just want to be aware of it so that we have the resources available and make sure everybody's following the rules. I've reached out to a couple of them now, and hopefully we can work with them in the future.
Yeah, that's really important. Thanks. Oh, I noticed there was a burglary at the Agri-Nature Center.
Yes.
Yes. Actually, we've had a theft from there. They stole a truck from the outside, and then they actually broke into the inside and stole a four-wheeler. Wow. In the last couple of months. And so we've been working with alarm systems and alarm companies and stuff, and also a security plan, and making sure that our facilities are secure. So.
Glad you're doing that. Wow, I didn't realize it. They couldn't have come in through the front, could they?
No.
No. They went out through the back also.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to up the budget on the Agri-Nature Center for the ICIP. That's it, Mayor.
So Trustee Radnovich, would you like to recuse yourself at this time? Or do you-
Yes, I don't think I should hear what Nan is going to talk about in
So
this.
you may recuse yourself, and we'll restart the meeting in
Thank you,
about
Mayor.
30 seconds. Okay. Oh, yes, we're going to get to that. I just want him to be recused.
Oh, I see.
He asked for that. He has to be recused. Okay, so Trustee Lewis, you are next.
My first question is for you, Ann. I know it says in here that we will stay tuned and we'll be discussing concepts of related ordinances later on. But how's it going for the Citizens Advisory Committee on the pilot conservation projects? Are they making some headway? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Trustee Lewis. We have been meeting for probably 9 months now, and we are, I would say, pretty close to some kind of an agreement on percentage of open space versus density bonus. I'd say we're close. We're not there yet. We're still working through a few things. We're hoping to have a public meeting in September to get community input. Still hoping to get this before the P&Z in October, before you all in November, and then pass a change to the ordinance by the end of the year, before the moratorium expires.
Okay. My next question is, just, we're coming along still on the Anderson property, okay?
Yes, Mayor Trustee Lewis. We will be closing on the bond on August 25th, and we hope to close on the home, do a title change first week in September.
Okay. I have one more question. It's not really part of your report, but I believe it was Tom Donlin at last month's meeting brought up that the deadline for the Village Vision is about a week before the deadline for filing for public office. Are we able to, he asked if we could make an adjustment there to those dates. Is that possible? Has that been looked at?
Mayor Trustee Lewis, we have not changed the date, but we always give ourselves a little wiggle room. And if that's something that is the will of the board, we're happy to do that.
Okay. Okay. My next questions are for Josh. I'll come back to those questions first, but this one I just had to ask right away. What is a lasagna garden? That one's been keeping me awake.
Mayor, Trustee Lewis, we grow lasagna at this.
I didn't know you could grow pasta. I'm impressed.
Yeah. No, lasagna garden is where you're layering cardboard, mulch, and compost, and then doing several layers of that stacking in order to become a weed barrier and add organic matter to the soil.
Okay, thank you. I'll sleep better tonight. My other question, they're sort of just together. You talked a little bit about the grain cleaning and equipment. I know you had the Heritage Grain Festival. How did all that go? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, Mayor, Trustee Lewis. This was our second grain festival, second annual grain festival. We do it in collaboration with the Rio Grande Grain Collective, which is based kind of in northern New Mexico, mostly out of Santa Fe. But we had a good turnout. We had people harvesting grain. We had the small combine on site doing some harvesting. We did threshing, winnowing, cleaning. We had a seed aspirator. We were able to milling. We were able to demonstrate the whole process. We also had a meal, live music, and it was a good event. Yeah, you were there. So, yeah, we had a good event. And of course, we deal with heat in the middle of the summer, so we get the hardcore agricultural enthusiasts who seem to show up for that event.
Okay, thank you, Josh. That's all the questions I have for you. I would just like to say to Ann, if you would please pass on my congratulations to Maida and her new daughter, Violet. I think that's fantastic. So. George asked my question, so Fred, you're off the hook. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Trustee Lewis. Trustee Benavides.
I do have some questions. I'll start with you, Ann. Yeah, the Lavender Festival. So we're apparently a victim of our own success. It is quite popular. You know, in some respects, it's a better problem than being not popular enough, right? And I also worry about us distancing this festival with connections to the village and even to the Agri-Nature Center. You know, one of the complaints that I told you about is, you know, I saw T-shirts for the first time being printed up without the name Los Ranchos on it. This is the first time I've seen that happen. And yes, we get quite a few people, and I don't know what site you're thinking of moving it to, but if it's outside the village, that distance.
It will not be outside the village.
Okay. I mean, so yeah, big crowds. What to do about that? Well, you know, if we were businessmen, we would just say, raise the price, right? That's, you know, don't do that, right? Well, so this is for the residents. You know, it'd be nice if we can give the residents one price and people outside the village another price. I'm not quite sure how you do that. Another way is just to limit the number of ticket sales, you know? You know, I think Trustee Radnovich brought up a good point about it being so crowded in the barn. Maybe that's a safety hazard. He could have a good point about that. But I hope we always maintain that connection with the Lavender Festival to the village, and keep in mind, we're leaving a lot of money on the table, you know. And I know Rio Grande Farms, Community Farms has proven themselves as being able to do an event like this. That's not a trivial thing to do. But there's still a lot of dollars there, and you know, and what do we get out of it? Well, we get a piece of farm equipment that I guess we don't own, but we get to share. You know, I think we can do better, and we can talk about it later. Okay, so let's see. That was my only question to you. Then for Joshua. I guess I didn't really have a question for you, did I? Yeah. Sorry. But no, hey, Josh, I do have, yeah.
Don't leave yet.
Yeah. So, okay, support of the coordination of landowners, businesses, and farmers. These are great things. I mean, these are the kind of things I've been trying to promote, and I know other people feel the same way, and I think you feel the same way. So how can we give back to the community? And you know, we're really trying to preserve our agricultural roots, and I think it's great that we do this. So about these YCC crews, how does that work? I mean, boy, they go around harvesting, and I mean, people would love that, right? Surely they just won't do that all the time, right?
Mayor, Trustee Benavides, unfortunately, our crew's last day is tomorrow. That we had 3 crews over the summer. Now we're down to 1 as people go back to school. Most of them are either high school or college-age students. So the crew that we have left, they're all college students, and they go back to school finally tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but next week. So the Youth Conservation Corps is a program paid for by the federal government. And so these crews get paid to do agricultural, conservation, that kind of work around the community. And so we have made them available to Los Ranchos residents, and we are, yesterday, we helped at 2 different properties, helping people with their fruit trees. We've helped clean up fruit off the ground that has fallen. We've helped harvest trees for landowners, and we do it, we're trying to help Los Ranchos residents as much as we can with their harvesting.
Any connection to the growers market?
We don't have, not the harvesting. The residents can do what they want with their fruit. A lot of times they choose to donate it, and a lot of it ends up going to food banks. Sometimes they want to keep it, so we leave it up to the landowner to decide if they want to sell it or what they want to do with their product.
Fair enough, yeah, good. So what's a small chicken tractor?
So a chicken tractor, Mayor, Trustee Benavides, the chicken tractor is a mobile chicken coop that can be moved around so that it that you don't have one area that builds up with manure and things like that. So you can move it around, fertilize the soil, and chickens can help with pest management as well.
And so the chickens are contained in a cage?
Not during the day, only at night for.
But the chicken tractor, aren't they contained so they?
Not during the day, just during the day, they free range in a 2-acre space. And then at night, in the evening when we leave, they go into their their mobile chicken coop, and we close it up so that coyotes don't.
I'll have to go check that out. It sounds like.
But we still have it mobile so that even just when they're in there overnight, that we don't want it to build up manure in one area. We want to keep it moving every couple of days so that it spreads out the benefit to the soil.
Sounds interesting to me. I'll have to go check it out. Okay, that's all I have for you. And then, let's see. I think I do have some questions for Nan, so we can ask Nan, right?
Absolutely, please do.
Okay.
That's the purpose of this.
So I did my best to read this long letter, and you know, I can see that a lot of thought was put into it. I guess I don't have as many questions as I thought. So the signature on the letter is by Juan Flores, is that correct?
Mayor, Trustee Benavides, correct. Juan signed. I was out for most of the month of July, but it was drafted by myself and Jamie Dawes.
Yeah, I apologize. I thought I had a different question, but I can't find it right now, so maybe I didn't. Yeah, I mean, I think that I would like for people to understand there's a difference between the legal issues in regards, you know, to palindrome, and then there's the issue about the hearts and minds of the people, and they're separate, and we just have to see how it plays out, I think. Let's see. So that's all I have for you. Let's see. I do have some more questions, though. Let me go to the right page. Oh. So these, no, the other, page 50. The other questions are about the budget. We wait till then.
We wait till
Okay. That's all I have then. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to invite Attorney Nan Winter to say whatever she wants to say. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. I don't normally include an attorney's report in your packet. I think that was a practice you used to engage in years ago.
A lot.
Yeah. But of course, most of what I do is subject to the privilege afforded between a client and an attorney.
Right.
In this particular case, though, we recently received a letter from Mr. Beck, who represents Friends of Los Ranchos. And in this letter, Mr. Beck indicates that Mr. Craig intends to apply to the district court for enforcement of an Open Meetings Act violation in connection with the approval accomplished by the village as it concerns palindrome. He provided a copy of this letter to the Attorney General. So when we drafted the response, we of course were very inclusive and wanted to include all the information that the Attorney General might need. So what we have in the packet today is the Stelzner Law Firm's response to Mr. Beck's July 19th, 2023 letter. What we really wanted to tell the Attorney General was that Mr. Craig and the Friends of Los Ranchos have already applied for enforcement of alleged Open Meetings Act violations. I'm not sure that Mr. Beck knew that because the lawsuit was filed by the first law firm that represented Friends of Los Ranchos. We also wanted to let the Attorney General and Friends of Los Ranchos know that if the village prevails, Friends of Los Ranchos will be paying the attorney's fees associated or coming from Stelzner to the village on this. So there's costs being caused from multiple directions. We also wanted to let the Attorney General know the history of the project going back to '07, the use of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Code, the development in very open and public meetings of the current Village Center zone. It was critically important to understand that the details and the development of that zone, including height and density, were determined in 2016. And that when you approved this project in 2018, the details of height, density, setback were already established in a very public process. We thought that was all critically important for the Attorney General to understand. Of course, the Attorney General completely understands that whoever prevails will be awarded attorney's fees, but we wanted to make that clear to Friends of Los Ranchos that if they lose, because they've alleged the same thing twice now, they will be responsible for these fees. We also wanted the Attorney General to know that the details of the relevant project area here at 4th and Osuna, including density, height, setback, advertising, lighting, parking, permitted and non-permitted uses, residential requirements, were discussed, refined, approved in multiple open meetings all through 2016, and then ultimately approved by the board that sat in 2018. So any development that came to you had to comply with the 2016 planning and zoning requirements and the 2018 BOT approval of the 2016 planning and zoning recommendations. I think that's all I have to say. If you have questions about the law that applies here, feel free to give me a call. We can discuss it offline. As you know, we can also discuss, there are multiple pending litigations with Friends of Los Ranchos. As everyone here knows, we've had several closed meetings to brief you on that. Because they had sent a letter, we felt it necessary to respond, and respond to both the Friends, respond to Mr. Beck, and respond to the Attorney General. I'll stand for questions, but again, I urge you to give me a call, or we can schedule a closed meeting.
I think that this is appropriate to stop. I recommend to the trustees a 5-minute recess so that we can use the restroom, and then we can bring George Radnovich back into the room. The time is 8:47. 5-minute recess.
Sorry. Sorry, I'm gonna run out of juice.
It's off. I didn't turn it off. The time is 8:57. The meeting of August 9th, 2023 Board of Trustees is reconvened. Item 9 is financial business. Discussion and approval of the July 2023 cash report. Treasurer Will Fisher.
Yes, sir, thank you. Before you use the cash report for July 31st, 2023, the ending balance as of July 31st, 2023 was $12,604,044.06, which is an increase of $365,502.60 for the month. That's a year-to-date excess of the same, which is the $365,502.60. Three significant items.
Thank you. Is Tammy Silva on? Okay, so she
Yes,
could.
Mayor, I am.
Thank you. You can answer questions if necessary. I need a motion to approve the July cash report before we get to discussion from the governing body.
I'll make a motion to approve the July cash report.
I need a second.
I'll second the motion to approve the July cash report.
Now we'll go trustee by trustee with any questions or discussion. Trustee Lewis.
Yeah, I only have one question. That was, and I don't know if you can answer it tonight, the Amazon Capital Services credit card, what we're spending there at Amazon. It seems higher than normal, and I'm sure it has to do with beginning of a new budget. But yeah, if somebody could get back to me, if you know the answer, great. If not, I'd appreciate somebody getting back to me with a breakdown.
So Mayor and Trustee Lewis, that is the June bill, and it was for some year-end purchases that we made that we would not have to budget for this fiscal year. $4,000 of that is for new Surface Pros and keyboards for the trustees and commissioners as the iPads were being dated out. And about $3,000 of that was for the Agri-Nature Center supplies for the outdoor classroom.
Thank you, Tammy. I have no further questions.
Okay, Trustee Benavides.
Yes. Page 53, Statement of Revenues and Expenditures. Let's see, current, we have for the current period, down at the bottom, we have a negative 1.89 million. So I realize that the actual cash basis is the important number, which is not negative. But why would we plan to start out with a negative on excess of revenues over expenditures?
So Mayor Trustee Benavides, when we budget for this, a lot of times it just is dependent on what is going on during the year. We have money that we have budgeted for some of our capital projects that we know are continuing from the prior fiscal year that that don't stop because of the switch in fiscal year. So we have certain expenditures that you can see, for instance, in the Rescue Act. That's a large chunk of items that we potentially could have purchased. But the largest one is if you look down to the Purchase Real Property Reserve Fund, we budgeted for potential closing of the property this month in July, and that did not happen. But that's pretty much what's setting that so far over. That $1.4 million is also cash that we already have in that account, and we would just have been spending it if that purchase would have gone through by July.
Okay. I trust you know how to do these accounting reports, but it just strikes a layperson like me as odd.
And I'm sorry, Mayor Trustee Benavides. So yes, one of the things that you'll want to take into consideration is when you're looking at these revenues and expenses, when you're looking at that category, that's looking at what's being brought in or spent during that exact month, but it doesn't take into consideration necessarily all the money that we have sitting in the bank. So again, that 1.4 million was already money sitting in the bank. We knew we were going to be using it. And so that's taking that into consideration, but it doesn't take it into consideration when you're just looking at what's happening in that current month. And that's why you're seeing that large negative there. I hope that kind of helps.
Yes, that makes a huge difference. Thank you. Okay, let's see, on the check voucher register, there's a check in the amount of $497. The description is 8001 Guadalupe Trail G&D Plan Review. Do you know what that is?
Yes, Mayor Trustee Benavides, what this is when a resident has to do a G&D review for the planning department, Bohannon Houston, who's the on-call, they invoice us, and then the resident of the property does reimburse the village. But it's just a timing difference there, but we will be reimbursed for that.
Okay. Page 55, top of the page. There was a $20 check for a return check fee.
Yes, Mayor Trustee Benavides, this check, we have a lot of security in our checks in our bank system, and there's several reasons why a check can be returned. If it's not put into the system, it can be returned into our banking system, not just our accounting system. And also, if the check prints too close, the vendor to the line that says paid to the order of, and this check came through slightly crooked. When it went through, Lowe's tried to cash the check, and it actually returned. And so I'm working with the bank to try and get that potentially given back to us. But at the moment, there is always a return check fee. And so we did go ahead and pay Lowe's for that. And now I'm working with our bank to hopefully get that $20 reimbursed by our bank.
Okay, I mean, it sounds like a bounced check, right? And
yes.
And you would pay the fee for the bounced check with another check. So, just, okay, let's see, that is all I have, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Radnovich.
My questions have already been asked, Mayor.
The floor is now closed for comments. I'm going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously. Okay, 10, public hearings, 10A. Discussion and approval of resolution number 2023-08-01, a resolution adopting the FY 2025/2029 Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, ICIP. Administrator Ann Simon.
All right, thank you, Mayor and trustees. Before you is the resolution for the 2025-29 Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan. This is a plan, as you know, that we update every year. It is an opportunity for us to basically put down on paper what the community wants to address, what we want to work towards, what we want to potentially fund. Sometimes agencies want to see a project in the top 1, 2, or 3 spot before they'll fund it. Some of our federal agencies want to see the project in the 1, 2, or 3 spot. For example, 4th Street. They want to know that this is the highest priority. So there are some considerations for where we place the item, but we do really value what the community brings to the public meetings in terms of their support, their interest area, and of course, we had a wonderful public meeting on the 18th of July, and we gave everyone a chance to not only vote, but we sat down and had about an hour-long discussion after the projects were presented, so it was really, really excellent. So, taking everything into account, I want to go through the projects. All righty, so on page 58 of your packet starts the list. If you look at page 60, you get the summary, and you will see that all of the projects that we discussed are on the list, but some of them start later. For example, I heard a community member asking why the community center project wasn't higher on the list. Well, that is because we have not had any chance to discuss where the community center might be. Is this a new construction? Is this a remodel of the old Village Hall? Is it an expansion of this facility? Is it electrification of the barn? There are many questions. We don't have land for a new community center. Does it include a pool? I mean, there are a lot of things that we need to start to consider before we put something on a list. It wasn't on the list that was in the first reading. It was added because there was so much interest during the community meeting. So we added that item as a new item. Also, you'll see the Agri-Nature Center is the 4th project on this year's list. I will tell you, at the public meeting, as much as we hear discussions about agriculture and public land and open space, not a single person at that public meeting voted for the Agri-Nature Center. So we know that this is a very important part of our program. We have a fabulous program manager at the center. We have a lot of needs there. First and foremost, our security, as you heard about tonight, that moves up because we know that we need to continue to plan for that facility. So the listing here is a recommendation. And I, the mayor, Maria Rinaldi, who was at the meeting, Kim Legant, who also staffed the meeting, and our project managers all sat down, we huddled, and this is the list that we are presenting to you and recommend that you adopt. So remember, it's a 5-year plan, so it starts in 2025, and then there are subsequent years. So for the 2025 listing, we have 8 projects: 4th Street, which we've talked about, public land. Now that didn't factor in as highly in the last few years. We knew it was important, it was on our ICIP, but there were so many concerned votes about public land and open space that moved up to number 2. So you'll see that, and I'm happy to share some photographs of the boards that had the votes. Chavez Road Multi-Use Trail. You heard from a couple members of the public tonight that they were not in favor of it. We heard last night at the Planning and Zoning Commission that that the community doesn't want to expand or widen that road. But remember, we've talked all about the need for a trail or some kind of safe walking path along that road. We are in the federal mix for funding for that road, and it's always been considered to be a trail or some kind of a pedestrian walkway. It is not to expand Chavez Road in terms of widening Chavez Road. We barely have enough room for the trail. So that is number 3. And again, that is because of our need to secure federal funding. Number 4 is the Agri-Nature Center. Number 5 is the community, Alfredo Garcia Community Barn. And I had Trustee Benavides on my shoulder when I was pushing for this to be moved up, because I am now convinced that we need some electrification and some other upgrades I don't think I'm personally convinced that we need to winterize it quite yet. I really appreciate Trustee Radnovich's comments about safety and crowd numbers during the Lavender Fest in the barn. I did not go into the barn during the most crowded period, and I'm very concerned about your statement, so appreciate that. So yes, we do have some things to do at the barn, and it could be a fantastic place to run some community meetings. The Veterans Memorial also got some support, and we have a beautiful sculpture that was donated to us, the Eagle sculpture, that could be very easily mounted and done very simply and inexpensively. We have road safety improvements as number 7, and that's something that, like it or not, we as a government owe it to our community to keep our roads in good shape. That is just a basic form of government, and we get a 75-25 match for road repair and reconstruction from
Go ahead. I want to add a comment when you're done with the road
from
safety.
the State Department of Transportation. So it's a really good deal for us. And again, if it's not in the top 10, they don't think it's a priority for us. So that's listed there. And the last thing is the EV charging stations, just because we did apply for that federal grant. So we'll see if we get it. Before I go on to 2026, Mayor, did you have a comment?
I just want to tell the residents that if the residents of Los Ranchos want a roadway that is safe and will last a number of years, the simplest, most effective way to do that is a bituminous surface treatment. You can do a single bituminous surface treatment from the right-of-way to the right-of-way. Then you do a double or a triple for the roadway section. You can basically stripe it. The walkway can be used for bicycles and even scooters or four-wheel type vehicles, but the color of the aggregate will be exactly what the road looks like today. So if the residents don't like blacktop, we can put in a bituminous surface treatment and it will be perfect. It'll last much longer. It's a cost-effective way of doing it. I just want the residents to know that I didn't know that they didn't like blacktop. Honest to God, I did not know that. But now we're hearing they don't like blacktop.
Well, during the ICIP workshop, we did have a discussion. Maria Rinaldi offered to add some funding in to do some design work and bring in some community input before each roadway that we
Thank you very
look
much.
at. So thank you, Mayor.
You bet.
Okay, so 2026, you see it before you. We've got sound barriers. Now, sound barriers, it sounds like it's way down in the list, but sound barriers is number 1 in 2026. And I will say that sound barriers got even more, I'm not sure, more or as many votes as community center. Sound barriers is very important. There are noise issues coming from Paseo del Norte. We are working with our legislative representative, De Hockman Vigil. We're working with the Department of Transportation. We're working with the county to try to mitigate this situation. It is important. One very simple fix that we heard DOT is going to provide for us is to finish the gap in the wall on the entrance ramp from 2nd Street up to Paseo. And hopefully that will help at least mitigate some of the exhaust sounds that the northern part of the village is hearing. This is also in 2026 because we, in the 2023 legislative budget, was included a line item for a study of what could be done on Paseo. And that is just something that is not even happening with village money, it's happening with state money. The state has hired parametrics to look at Edith to Coors Boulevard, that stretch. So it really runs the entire length of the village of Los Ranchos. So it's a great study, it's underway, and there will be recommendations for mitigation strategies. And at that point, in 2026, we will be ready to implement some of those. So again, there was a rationale for where things were located. Old Village Hall is number 2 in 2026. There was a lot of discussion. Many people had no interest in turning that into a community center. And by the end of the evening, what we heard as staff was, don't tear it down, renovate it. So it's there in 2026, number 2. Number 3 is Village Hall. This hall, we need upgrades to our bathrooms, some of our office facility, and to our chamber. 2027 is levy mitigation, and that's in 2027 because, again, there's a federal FEMA study that won't be complete until 2027. We have Osuna and 2nd Street in case we need to make some action there. We don't know, but we have it down as a placeholder. And in 2008, we have a community center that hopefully we will have discussed and have an idea for what we want to address. And then the Schulte House over at the Agri-Nature Center. That is the list that we are proposing this evening. And I stand for questions.
Okay, before we get to questions from the governing body, and then we'll have public input, I do need a motion to approve resolution number 2023-08-01.
I make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-08-01.
I need a second.
Yeah, I'll second it.
I'm going to go trustee by trustee with discussion before we get to the public comment. Trustee Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I just wanted to point out on page 59, there's just a typo.
Right.
2008 instead of 2028. Then on page 60, the community barn has been moved up to number 5. Do these, we approved the list, that dollar amounts change? I mean, there's no dollar amounts at this point for the community barn because I guess no research has been done as to what we need and what it would cost.
We don't have numbers, but Ann, you might want.
So this list, we come back and fill it in, is that?
Correct. Mayor and trustees, this is a formula that we input into a state template, and because we don't have your approval and we don't have all of the information, not everything is filled out here, but it just gives you an example of what the summary looks like.
Okay. I have no further questions at this time.
Trustee Benavides.
Yeah, so I know people feel like there's a disconnect between the prioritization that went on at our public meeting and what they see here. And I think we could have done a better job of prior to starting the meeting, maybe go through each of the projects, tell them what it's about, and also explain that there's a strategy. That part is missing. So we've done similar things when I worked at the labs about funding research projects, right? You know, there's colors of money, and sometimes you can get certain things funded. It might not be your number one priority thing, but you can't get it funded. You can't get your number one priority thing funded. And the other thing I would say is, all right, let's say you have 5 projects that you want to get funded, and they're prioritized 1 through 5, but you get all 5 funded. Do you care if which one was number 1 at that point, right? And then sometimes there's only little tiny bits of money that's left over that you can direct towards a particular project that's a tiny project. So I hear what you say about the strategy for 4th Street. I know people have mixed feelings about it, but I do support the 4th Street project. So let's see, do I have any specific questions? I might have. I think one of the things I would add to the barn is that would also be a low budget item is evaporative cooling. So that I realize winterizing the barn would be difficult. But if we had evaporative cooling, perhaps some of the events the smaller events, not the Lavender Festival, but some of the smaller events that include music, we could actually close the doors and then, or have to have some airflow, but maybe there'd be a lot less noise that would bother the neighbors if we have evaporative cooling. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I would add a comment, Trustee Benavides. I need to ask an electrical engineer if they make a large mini split, because a mini split does both heating and air conditioning, and they're actually cheaper. I don't know what the maximum size would be, though. That's a question, but it could serve a purpose.
It's just, it's not insulated, so usually.
Well, I understand that. I mean, but you're only there for a short time, right?
Yeah.
A few hours,
Yeah,
perhaps.
but it's worth investigating.
Checking into.
Yeah.
Okay, Trustee Radonovich, your turn.
I have quite a few issues with the list. One is that when we hold the, Trustee Benavides mentioned this a little bit. When we hold a public meeting and ask people to vote, we need to explain to people that how this is actually going to come to pass. And this doesn't relate at all to, at least the prioritization, doesn't relate at all to what was voted upon at the public meeting. So just saying. At the public meeting, the first priority was open space acquisition. The second was Paseo sound mitigation. The third was a community meeting center. Then Chavez Road. 4th Street was 5th. Levees, barn enhancements, et cetera, were all after that. I understand that government has to work weighing what the public says versus what government has to do to keep everyone safe and to also prioritize. But I don't think we're very transparent about it. In fact, I'm not ready to vote on this tonight because I wasn't asked anything about this. I know you did internally you did send an email out to all of us, but I'm ready to talk about it tonight, not through an email. And so that's why I didn't answer that. Couple other things I wanted to mention. I don't think we should be doing anything on Hartnett Park until we have an environmental assessment. I actually asked a friend of mine that's an environmental consultant to give me a price. She didn't get it back to me before tonight. But I don't think we should be spending any money on the community barn or the Veterans Memorial before we have an environmental assessment, because we all know that there's some things down underground that and artifacts potentially that are valuable and that we really shouldn't be covering up. So my own thought on the barn is that it probably should be moving because there's just not enough room in Hartnett Park to do what we use it for, but that's personal, that's me. Let's see. So I think that needs to happen before any of those items become real. On the sound barriers, I do think that's a really important project. I'm glad it's on the list. It wasn't as high up as I thought it should be, and I think it should be much higher on the list. And I realize that we're working on it with the state, but it really should be higher on the list. I think Village Hall also ought to be higher on the list. When I saw Village Hall in 2026, when I saw the old Village Hall at $1.8 million, and then Village Hall, the one we're sitting in right now, at $1.1 million, I thought, really? That just seems crazy to me.
It's bathrooms.
It's bathrooms at the old Village Hall.
No, here. It's plumbing. That's what is driving the price up for the Village Hall.
No, I thought the price was too low for Village Hall. Yeah, not too high. Osuna and Second in 2027. I'm not going to talk about Fourth and Osuna, but I think that needs to be higher on the list because I think that there's potential for that being a problem before many other things. Just a few other things. I looked at this very closely, as you can tell. And some of this has already been talked about. I think that we ought to talk about as a community the potential to have the Agri-Nature Center and the community center be one place. There's a lot of room over there. The community center probably doesn't want to be here in this hall, although I think we could use the old firehouse potentially as Village Hall. It would be much bigger than this part of the building. But I think that could be a kind of community park that includes open space, obviously, but has to, and includes agriculture, but it could include other things as well. And I think if it were planned correctly, it would be a really beautiful addition to the village. Yeah, the sound barrier seemed woefully undervalued in this, but I understand that the DOT will probably be helping with that too. So I'm guessing that's the case. And I think that's all I had to say. So my biggest worry is that we really didn't get to talk about it as a discussion, as a dialogue among all of the trustees. It just showed up. And I realized that you sent out the email to all of us about that. But I think we need to have a discussion about it before we have a vote. So I'm just giving you my 2 cents on all of them.
May I offer a couple of comments of critical importance to this matter? Number one, is there not a deadline for this?
Mayor, trustees, yes, there is a deadline. It's in 2 weeks. However, this is the second reading, remember? So we had an opportunity to discuss last month. We had a discussion amongst the community members, and then tonight is your opportunity to discuss. So that's 3 opportunities.
There is one more
Not really,
factor.
not really. I disagree.
Well, there is one more factor of critical importance. If this is voted down and that list doesn't go in, you can't ask for money for any of it from the state. You'll have to wait an entire year. The second thing, as a community, there is an election coming up. Legislature begins on the 20th of January. If the new governing body and perhaps the new mayor, whoever it might be, if they have different priorities, they can go to the legislature and ask for funding. But if this list is not sent up there, then you can't ask for anything. You'll have to wait an entire year. So I point out to the trustees that it's very important to approve this list, but it's not set in stone. It's not set in stone. Okay? Am I correct, Ann?
That's correct. I mean, look at, this is a proposal. If you want to move some things around, I'm welcome. I'm happy to take recommendations. This is not set in stone. This is a template. We can move it, which is why we've presented it to you this evening, and we have all the time in the world to discuss the
Last
issues.
month, we did talk about it, but we were told that nothing was prioritized.
That's right.
So.
And this is a presentation. So now you have an opportunity to discuss.
I've already said my piece.
So do you want comments from us?
I'd be willing to have a special meeting just to talk about the ICIP before the deadline that you talked about, Mayor.
Then if the trustees do not approve this or do not want to approve it, it can be deferred to a special meeting, and we should probably have that special meeting 1 week from tonight. I would say start that meeting at 5 o'clock and spend 4 or 5 hours talking about, I have no problem with that. My point is, if you don't send this list in, you can't ask for money. The state has already told us that. So that's the dilemma that we face. Okay? So the trustees have a choice. They can defer it to a special meeting. They can approve it with the understanding that it's not set in stone, that the governing body that's sitting here in January of 2024 can decide what money they want and where they want to spend it and send that to the legislature. That's my recommendation. Trustee Lewis.
You know, I agree that the time element is critical, but it's only, I mean, you can submit all 15 items,
Of course.
you know?
That's right.
And then it's on our list and they're up there.
Exactly.
Then we can sit down and say, let's hammer out, and I know we have some public comment tonight too. I'd like to hear that too.
Yes.
But in my experience over the years, this has been a moving
Totally.
target all the time.
Totally.
Because all of a sudden, I mean, personally, I think it's a little premature for charging stations. I think that is still an unknown landscape out there. It's evolving. But that might be something that they're gonna throw money at right away, and we're going, wait a minute, you started with number 7 for us, just like Gil said.
Right.
We didn't even plan on that, really, you know, it was so far down on our list. But that's, you know, where the money comes from. So in my experience, I've just found that, you know, you have your whole list as we get closer to the legislature going into session. You really want to hammer out over the next couple months what those priorities are and what we think the directive is going to be for after the elections for people. And maybe maybe it needs to be something done after the elections. You know, I don't know, given being election year, but I do think you have time. It doesn't have to be hammered out by, you know, in 2 weeks. You just have to have your list. This is the list.
This is the prioritized list.
Yeah.
It is, but it's not set in stone.
Mayor and trustees, I just want to remind you that tonight is the night that we can reprioritize any of these projects. I am not wedded to any of these. This is not my list. This is a list that we discussed amongst staff, amongst project managers, the mayor, taking into account all of the input that we heard. If you have a suggestion, I am totally open. I promise you, I am open to it, and I want to hear your suggestions, and I'd rather do it now. I agree with the mayor. This is something that we have to get in. It can be changed on an annual basis. It doesn't affect, all the projects are there. What would you like to see?
I
mean,
think
I'm
I already
happy to.
gave you the suggestions. Ann.
Okay, so, I mean, we have, in the past, we have actually voted number 1, number 2, number 3, Mayor. I mean, maybe
Well,
trustee
my
Lewis remembers what
my
we've
sug-
done in the past.
Well, my suggestion, Ann, and governing body, we approve the list, and that list goes in on time. And then over the next 2 months and after the election, the governing body makes their decision on what the priorities are. Because this governing body may not be the same 2.5 months from now. Bottom line.
Well,
There could be
more than
3 new people sitting up here January 1.
Mm-hmm.
And those 3 new people are gonna be listening to the general public, and the general public is gonna say, we voted you in, we want you to make this the highest priority.
But it's still prioritized. Can we send in a list that isn't prioritized?
Of course we can, unless you think we can't, and tell me.
No, we have to prioritize.
Then we do have to prioritize. So I
So let's go through them one by one, okay? I think that's the best thing to do, because it sounds like everybody has different priorities. All right. What I heard from Trustee Benavides is he wanted to potentially look at some evaporative cooling in the Alfredo Garcia Community Barn, and from Trustee Lewis that he wanted to add some figures in there. How about the ordering, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Is that high enough in the priority to be fifth, the barn? Let's take the barn.
Yes, I think that's appropriate.
Trustee Lewis, is that appropriate to have the barn as the number 5th priority?
Based on what I heard earlier, and before we get to this discussion, we have a few people signed up. I'd like to hear public comment.
Why don't we do that?
But, because, I've heard tonight, it wouldn't have been my priority necessarily, but what I'm hearing tonight is that we should be moving up sound barriers. So, for me to say, well, I think 1 to 5, well, I'd like to hear what the people that signed up have to say, and then I'd like to have this discussion.
We can do that right now, and I think that's an appropriate thing to do. So do you want me to call them up, Danielle? Because I have 2 names on the list. Let's start with Loretta Chavez Smith. Please come forward. You have 2 minutes.
Again, good evening, Mayor and trustees. You're welcome. Okay. My contention is we came into a meeting and we prioritized what we wanted, okay? And I understand funding, I understand going to state and asking for these funds. I also understand from the state, they will ask you, is this what the people want? Not what you guys want, okay? Just point blank, I've been there. We came up with sound mitigation. That is horrendous for those people who live on Paseo del Norte. Okay, so then we came up with open space acquisition. That's what everybody wants in this village, to have open space. Number 2, we came up with a community meeting center. Well, that's a brand new construction. So let's put it all the way at the bottom of the list. Chavis Road, okay, number 3, we had it number 4. Barn enhancements, number 5, barn enhancements still have to happen. It's necessary for this village, period. We've been letting it sit there and rot for too long. The levee repair, it's understandable. It was moved further down, and that's okay. That's going to happen because of the fact that we have this flood issue in this valley. Look what happened to our streets, just the downpour last night. 4th Street revitalizing. Okay, you guys put it all the way up to the top. We don't think it's that necessary, but because of the funding, it has to go up front. Understood. Okay, now here's the real problem. You've got the community center, the Veterans Memorial, that's been addressed by Mr. Ranovich. Road safety enhancements, that has to happen because of our streets. The charging station needs to go to the bottom. We're not even there yet.
Time has expired. Please give your final statement. You have 10 seconds.
My biggest contention with all of this is trying to spend $1.8 million on a building that you could tear down and build brand new for $1.8 million. The same size. That is my final.
Thank you, Loretta. Randall Ginn, are you still here? I don't see him in the audience. He left. Okay, so that's the end of the public comment.
Oh, I signed it as well.
Your name's not on here. Did he sign in?
Mayor and trustees, I think this is your writing. I have one for a bond, the resolution, and if this other signature is yours, it is for ordinance number 296, the advertisement. Did you want to be added to that?
Yeah, do you want to speak, David? Then come on up, speak. Randall Ginn is not here, so you can speak. Go right ahead. This is really important.
Well, thank you. I think the list is good, and I'm afraid a little bit of I think we've got to be careful so that when we go to the village, David Montoya, 8831 4th Street Northwest. I think when we go to the legislature that we look like we're together. So I think we do need to get people to buy in, but I hope people don't forget about 4th Street because we are doing a lot of things on Rio Grande. We have bought a lot of properties on Rio Grande. And if we're not careful, I don't want to forget about 4th Street. And walking on 4th Street, I invite people to just try it. I do it all the time. And my kids live very close to 4th Street at the north end. Just try it. I do it, ride a bike. And please, and my aunt got run over at 4th Street at Los Ranchos School. Right. How can you safely walk if we can't have sidewalks? Please think about our investment on 4th Street and not turn our back on it. And the sound walls, I think, are absolutely essential. It's spooky to be along, to live. We have property on Calle Perito, just like Joe. And when you hear those cars rev up like the way they do, I don't know why the county, the city, or the village can't exercise some kind of restraint on the traffic on that road. But I see my time's running out, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Well, let's continue the discussion. Ann, how do you want to go? How do you want to move?
All right, so Mayor, trustees, so I'm just going to continue on with the notes that I took. So I also heard that Hartnett Park, both anything that goes on in the barn and the veterans should be studied first. That could mean we could still put it on our list, but we add study first and then whatever action we want later. I don't know if that means higher or lower on the list. I need some guidance. Sound barriers, we can absolutely move up. The issue is moving forward and it's a large sum, but we actually don't even have full construction. So if you want to move that up, if you actually want to look at where it landed, there were 26 votes for sound barriers and 26 votes for new acquisition of land and property. So if you want to put those next to each other, I don't know which comes first. If I need a recommendation, we can absolutely put that as number 2 or 3, sound barriers. Okay?
As far as the barn and the Veterans Memorial, and I suppose EV charging stations is part of that too, although it's going to be right here at the village. But I think if we add to that list, it says to plan, design, improve, and equip. If we add environmental study.
Okay.
Absolutely.
To that and the Veterans Memorial.
Excuse me, George, what were you adding to the environmental study? You're adding to what?
We're adding, or I would like to add environmental study to number 5, Alfredo Garcia Community Barn, to the Veterans Memorial, and to EV charging stations, and I suppose to Village Hall, since we've got that on the list.
And Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, if I could also just get a little sense from you now that we have all these discussed and on the list here, what would you like to see moved up or down?
Trustee Lewis, why don't you start?
All right. I'd have to say my first five at this point are continuing on with the 4th Street Road. We've spent a lot of time and effort and been moving forward on it, and I'd like to see us keep moving forward on it. I would put new acquisition of land and property, number 2. I would put sound barriers, number 3. I would put road safety enhancements, number 4. Am I going too fast?
No, I got it.
And number 5 is the Chavez Road multi-use trail. We heard a lot about that since last summer, for the last year. There was a lot of discussion from people in this room about wanting something done about Chavez Road. And so that would be my top 5.
Thank you. How do you want to handle it? What are your top 5?
Well, let me start out by saying, in regards to the barn, those kind of dollars, we would probably, I don't know if we would ask for money for that, or we could actually fund that ourselves, I would think, right?
And Mayor and trustees, this is a plan. It's not always just the request that's going to the legislature. It's just a plan for what we want to do in our community.
But I think it's important to understand the priority probably doesn't really matter very much if we're, given the dollars are low and we could fund it ourselves. So I don't mind it being moved down, but I think it's important. And it sounds like, it may sound like it's a lower priority, but I think it's likely to get funded. And so I am hearing that the sound barriers needs a higher priority. So that could be number 5 to me, or it could be 4. You could switch places. What we failed to ask at our public meeting is what we shouldn't fund, I think. That was a missed opportunity. Because, you know, if you have 10 different things and the thing that you don't want to fund comes in number 10, it sounds like it's number 10 in priority, right? But it's really, people are saying, take it off the list. And I don't think the public said this, but I heard a lot of support for taking something off the list. And that is Old Village Hall. To me, that's a low priority item. I think it's a lot of money, and I'm not sure if it will get used. And given that we purchased the Anderson House, we need to think about money and how we maintain that and what we do with that. So we need to give all that some thought before we jump into refurbishing or doing anything with Old Village Hall. So that's my priority.
Trustee Radnovich, have you said your piece, or do you want to talk some more?
I'll give my list of top 5 or 10 too, Mayor.
Please,
if I could.
do it.
I would put new property acquisition as number 1. I would put Chavez Road in the top 5 as well, probably number 2. I would put the sound barriers, and I'd like that defined a little bit, because I don't think we're talking about sound walls. I think we're talking about other things like the berms. Landscaping doesn't do anything for sound. So I've heard that many times used, and it just doesn't work.
Mayor and Trustee Radnovich, before you continue, Chavez Road, it's not Chavez Road, but it's the trail. Is that what
It's the trail,
okay.
Yes. I would put the Agri-Nature Center in that top list. And I would put the community center along with the Agri-Nature Center in that same same line item. And I'd probably put 4th Street 5th or 6th.
George, I would say, keep going for your top 10.
Right. Oh, sure.
I broke it down in bites of 5, and I've been working on my next 5.
Oh, and you've got the other 5?
So I think I have my next 5, so I'd like to know.
I'd put Village Hall. Village Hall looks awful, and I think it really needs some help. And I agree, the bathrooms don't work very well, and they're out of date. The levy mitigation, after the mayor explained what that is at the last meeting, I would put that high. I think that's a safety and welfare issue. And I would put Osuna and Second Street Road, Osuna Road to Second Street high on the list as well.
Any more?
Gotcha.
Oh, that's it.
I'm ready then to give
Go right ahead, trustee Lewis.
my 6 through 10, as I would see it. And again, just from experience, you know, we've been sitting here before where it was very lean years up at the legislature. And it's like, man, we're gonna be lucky if one of them gets funded.
That's what happened to us this year.
And then this year, we got a bunch, you know, the state has a lot of money. So it's this is such a moving target that we could be going, we have the same list next year and be working it around. We just don't know. But let me give Ann my next 5. I would go with the Ag Nature Center. I would go with the Village Hall renovation. Yeah, the bathrooms and stuff are just in dire need.
This is your second set?
This is my second set.
This is 6 through 10.
Levy mitigation, I think, is a safety issue. Osuna and Second Street. And then personally, I'd make the Veterans Memorial number 10. So that's my top 10.
Trustee Benavides?
Well, I didn't finish
That's why
I didn't finish my homework assignment here. Okay, so let's see. 4th Street, number 1. New acquisitions, I mean, we already are gonna do that, right? We have that, the bond money, and I don't know if we have to prioritize that?
Mayor and trustees, on the last list, we had $8 million, and it was very high on our list, and we purchased an $8 million property. Now, we have $2 million in bonding capacity. Whether or not we want to borrow more money, that's another issue. But we also have opportunities to apply for the new Land and Water Conservation Fund.
Oh.
And we can apply for a grant from the state for up to $1 million. So I think the amount that I put down there was $3 million. We don't have to use all of the $3 million if we identify a parcel. And that was obviously very, very strong concern from the community, and it's been a priority of the village. So, but that's why.
Thanks for the explanation. That makes sense. Okay, so then we'll keep that as number 2. Chavez Multi-Use Trail, 3. 4 sound barriers and real barriers, by the way. I agree with you that landscaping does not do the trick.
I knew it for a fact.
Yeah, no, I believe you. 5, Agri-Nature Center. 6, the barn. 7, road safety enhancements. 8, Veterans Memorial. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about our Village Hall here. Need to back up. So I need to get our Village Hall a higher priority. So let me put that after, what did I have, the barn as number 6. So let's have that as number 7. and then 8 road safety enhancements, 9 Veterans Memorial. I don't really know about 10. I mean, the thing about the EV charging stations, it's not for us. I think it would be wise to have it on 4th Street because there's a lot of people that have electric cars, and we do want them to come and visit us. So you might want to rethink that. It's really not for us. It's for people to come in and shop in our stores and eat in our restaurants. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about a student in a second. So that should be in the top 10, yeah.
So Ann, are you ready to give everybody the list that we can vote on?
Yes. Okay.
No, there's 3 trustees, so there won't be a tie.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
And speak slowly.
Yeah. All right. All right, let's see. Oh my gosh, this is what we talked about, Danielle. We're going to have to figure out math. All right, two of you wanted 4th Street as the number 1 project. One of you wanted it as number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or 6. Okay, lower down. How about we have it as number 2 or 3? As long as it's in the top 3, I think let's put it as number 2 since you guys. So number 1, sound barriers. Does that sound good? Or new property?
I mean, we're trying to do a 2-hour job in 10 minutes is a problem.
Which is why this is our 3rd time bringing it up. It really, honestly, it doesn't matter in the sense that these are our priorities. This is the list that we give to the state. It is for our use. We can change these at any time. It is not just for capital outlay. It is for federal grants. It's for foundation money. It's when Joshua talks to a grantor from the Carroll Foundation, all of these different things. And it's for us so that we can look and see how we can cobble money together. When we do our budgets every year, it's for us.
I mean,
I think we've got everything down. We've got it all here.
But I would rather have Maria say 4th Street is our number 1 project. I think that nobody remembers who came in second, right?
Go ahead, Maria.
May I comment, Mayor?
Go ahead.
Trustee Benavides, in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to funding 27 million on 4th Street for the project to drop in priority, doesn't look so good. This matters to Federal Highway Administration. This matters in the transportation improvement project. The 6.5 million we just got, we got it because it's number 1 in the ICIP.
And there's another factor, Maria. If you don't make it number 1 and you wait 3 or 4 years, that cost will be $50 million. And I'm telling you right now, it will never be built.
And
It's that simple.
Mayor trustees, it's not a matter of this is going to guarantee it's going to be funded. It just says to the potential funders that this is a project we've invested in quite successfully, and we tout that all over the place, how successful phase 1 is. The idea that it would drop in priority, as a project manager, I think is not a good look.
Mayor, trustees, we have our former CFO helping with the math.
Do you want to take a 5-minute break so we can finish all of this?
Sounds good.
Okay, 5-minute recess. I got to use the restroom.
It's a toughie because, some of the money we're putting for 24 sudden it changes to 25, or it changes to year 26.
Yeah.
Based on how things get funded.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
It's not easy.
it really doesn't matter. I mean, I do.
Oh. You're correct. I didn't have it, but it's out there. So I think it's okay.
That's fine.
You worry me, that's like, okay, then I forget to something. But there's a lot that has to happen before that.
I just thought let's resume the meeting so we could talk a little bit about where we want to go from here with what Tom gives us and Ann. You know, I'm fine having it seemed like we were all pretty close on the top 10. And so I'm pretty good with having a list with the top 10 that we basically agreed on to submit. And then next month, the month after, let's just keep massaging it. Because I don't even know if we could come to a conclusion.
I don't think
if we had a special meeting. Well, if we had a special meeting and hammered on it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Everybody still has their strong opinions
Right.
about different things.
Mayor, trustees, I do have a listing based on your priorities that you
Go
gave
ahead,
us.
give us that list.
We've got land as number 1, 4th Street as number 2, Chavez Trail number 3.
Wait, slow down.
Sorry. Land, 4th Street, Chavez Trail, sound barriers, Ag Center, Village Hall, roads.
Well, when you say Village Hall, this Village Hall?
This Village Hall.
Okay, thank you.
3rd is Chavez Trail. Roads is number 7. Levies is number 8. 9 is a tie between Osuna and the barn improvements. And 10, 11 is the Veterans Memorial. And then the other ones fall down after that.
So do the trustees have any further comments, or am I ready to close the floor for comments?
Well, wait a minute. Sorry, is the suggestion that we vote on this priority list? I mean, I stand fast that 4th Street needs to be number 1. And I don't know, I understand Trustee Radnovich's concern about 4th Street, but does it really make a difference if it's 1 or 2 to you?
It probably does, yeah.
You would rather see it 2 than number 1?
If that's what the votes were.
I'm going to hold I'm going to insist that it's number 1.
Trustee Lewis?
I support you, Gil. I
Put
think,
it as number 1.
I think 4th Street should be number 1.
Put it as number 1. Switch those two.
Okay, do you want me to read the list again?
No, I don't think you need to. I'm going to close the floor for comments. I'm going to call for the question and call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item B, discussion and approval to advertise ordinance number 296, an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, New Mexico taxable industrial revenue bond, parentheses Clover Holdings, comma, LLC project, Series 2023, in the maximum principal amount of $5 million in one or more series to construct, renovate, and equip beef jerky manufacturing, storage, and warehousing operations, authorizing the execution and delivery of an indenture, lease agreement, bond purchase agreement, bond and other documents in connection with the issuance of the bond and the project, making certain determinations and findings relating to the bond and the project, ratifying certain actions taken previously, and repealing all actions inconsistent with this ordinance. Administrator Simon.
All right, thank you, Mayor and trustees and audience members who are still here. Before you is the first reading of an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of an industrial revenue bond for beef jerky manufacturing at the corner of 2nd and El Pueblo. And I have Chris Muirhead, who's also been patiently waiting for this item, here to answer any questions specifically about what an industrial revenue bond is, why this project, and what it means for the village. Before we go to Chris, though, I just want to say this is a really exciting opportunity for the village. Beef jerky manufacturing, it's a clean business. We have We know in economic development, food manufacturing is a desirable manufacturing use. There's a higher multiplier for a community. It's going to be good for the village of Los Ranchos, and most importantly, I think it's supported by the neighboring church, which really gave its blessing, so to speak, to that one particular business over many others that were looking at that property. So I turn it over to Chris. Let's see.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Chris Muirhead with the Model Firm. I think the important thing to note, just because we've just gone through the GO bond and that's going to close in a couple of weeks, that the very important difference of what this bond, quote unquote, is. This is not a debt of the village. There will never be an obligation of the village to repay it. It is solely an economic development engine to provide benefits to this company through gross receipts tax, deductions on purchases, to equip the facility, and a property tax abatement for the life of the industrial revenue bond. So it is not a financial obligation of the village. It's set up as a bond to move the property into the name of the village for the life of the bond so that it is off the property tax rolls and not have any liability for property taxes. Again, the idea is to incentivize here a local business to relocate, expand, invest in the community. And it's just a business transaction from the city where it looks at the economic development, the benefits of increased employment. We can talk much more about it next month if you decide to move forward on it, about exactly how it's structured. But I think it's important just for everybody here tonight to understand, since that bond issue has been going on, this is fundamentally could not be different in the sense that this is not a debt of the village.
So before we get to questions from the trustees, I'm going to need a motion to approve the advertisement of ordinance number 296.
I'll make a motion to approve the advertisement of ordinance number 296.
I need a second.
I think we should discuss it anyway. I'm going to second it.
Okay, so we're going to have discussion now. We're going to go trustee by trustee. Trustee Lewis.
I'd like to hear more about, if you can just go into more detail.
Sure.
I don't know what to ask at this point because I don't understand it.
Yeah, so Mayor, Trustee Lewis, the New Mexico statutes provide a mechanism for municipalities to provide incentives to businesses, and there's a list of things that fit, including manufacturing, which this food manufacturing fits, for municipalities to provide incentives to compete, basically, with other municipalities to bring in businesses that they care about, that they're going to be beneficial to the community. Here you have a local business wanting to relocate and expand, and that is certainly consistent with what I've seen in other jurisdictions. As I was explaining to Ms. Simon yesterday, the City of Albuquerque did an IRB 2 years ago for Bueno Foods for a very similar idea that they were looking potentially, how serious I don't know, to relocate to Texas because they were offering significant incentives. The city provided an economic development bond, which provided them no property taxes and some gross receipts tax abatement that incentivized them to stay. So this is just a tool in the village's arsenal to entice businesses to either relocate or stay, basically, in the community. The cost to the village is not, in this case, not much, in the sense that there would be a gross receipts tax hit just on the purchases of equipment for the facility, one-time equipping of the facility, and a property tax abatement. However, the company makes a payment in lieu of taxes to the village for doing the bond, which would, I think in this case, given the low property taxes the village has, more than equal what the loss would be to the village. So really the benefit would be their non-payment of other tax levies on their property. So, and it's structured in a way that we have to go through this whole bond issuance, quote unquote, even though it is not generating any revenue. The village isn't borrowing money. The company may be borrowing money to do this, but not through this bond. This is really being structured because of particular statutes and constitutional prohibitions that require it to be done in a way that the property technically moves to the village, which is exempt from property taxes. Once it's in the village's name, then it's off the tax roll for the life of the bond. And there's a deduction for villages buying things, buying equipment, buying products, that they don't pay gross receipts tax. So the company would be an agent of the village for purposes of those acquisitions during the construction and equipping of the project. In short, it's really a business deal for the city. What your payment in lieu of taxes is going to be is negotiated with the company. I've seen 25%. They get a 75% abatement. The village gets the 25% payment in lieu of taxes for the life of the bond. The life of the bond is a negotiated discussion. The statute provides up to 30 years. City of Albuquerque only permits up to 20. Bernalillo County may go 30, but they have all kinds of rules that it may only do 10. So it's really a business discussion about, what value are they getting from it that they think it's worthwhile, and the village getting that payment over the life of the bond to basically make themselves whole, yourselves whole for your property tax loss during the term of that bond.
Mayor and trustees, before we go to questions, I also want to add that the property was currently a church school, so I don't believe we were getting property taxes from
Getting anything.
that property.
Go ahead, sir.
So even though we get a very small portion of the property taxes, we still have the authority to deny Bernalillo County getting their property tax?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that happens all the time with the city of Albuquerque or Bernalillo County. Companies will compete between the two to see who will give them the better deal. So they may go to Bernalillo County and say, well, what do you give me, blah, blah, blah. And then there's political clout that the commissioner or, elected official can say, I brought in. And you can see this on huge scales. They could be $100 million. Netflix being a more recent example, 2 or 3 years ago, did a IRB with the city of Albuquerque out of Mesa del Sol to construct their production facilities out there. It's $500 million. Now, that isn't, again, any money the city's ever liable for. And in exchange for doing that, Netflix agrees that they're going to be producing so much in, jobs, productions, in quantitative dollars. And if they don't, the city can claw back some of the property tax abatement they've gotten, just as part of that understanding. So this one much smaller, of course, but the same concept that you're looking to do. And again, these companies, they'll compete, whether it's between two local governmental entities, cities, and at one point, I can't, if it was Tesla, may have been Tesla, the city of Albuquerque thought they were going to get a big Tesla production thing, and city in Nevada came in and swooped out and gave them something right at the last minute, right when everybody was taking credit for a deal done. So they will play off each other and try just to make the best business deal and locate where it's the best, business environment for them to do that. Here, again, it's a much smaller concept where you have locally owned, family-owned business that wants to stay and relocate. But, so they're not playing the village off of the city or the county in this instance that I'm aware of. But yeah, you make the decision, you have the power to do it, and those entities lose out on that.
Okay. So my understanding is the property, that company buys the property, but it gets put in the village's name during their bond issue.
Yes.
Time period. And at the end of that period, then we would title over the property to the company.
Yes.
Provided they've met all the terms of what was negotiated.
Right. And if they don't, there'll be provisions in the lease agreement that is part of the documents for the IRB that you can terminate it and unwind it, and they're back on the property tax rules. So they have to live up to their end of the deal.
And so that would be the title's in our name that we would, everybody, has heard horror stories and tends to remember the bad IRB bond deals, and they forget about all the good ones that have been done. So if this company defaulted, they just go back on the property tax rolls.
Right. It's,
And so the deal's off, and so we haven't lost much at that point. We just would deed them the property at that point.
right. And depending on, you know, an example of a bad IRB, Phillips 20 years ago, but in that situation, the city had clawbacks and they got paid by Phillips many millions of dollars that Phillips had initially benefited from. But when they didn't live up to their end of the deal by providing X number of employees and producing, you know, the quantity of work that they intended to, the city got that money back. And so in the lease agreement here, you would have clawbacks to say, okay, you are anticipating employing so many people. You are anticipating being here in the community. So if they don't meet any of the requirements that the city has, or the village has, that's a default under the lease. You just unwind it. And by unwinding it, literally is deeding the property back to the company.
Okay, and my next question is, who vets this company? I mean, I know they've been there a long time where they currently are.
Who what?
Who vets them? Who's gonna say, you know, I think they are financially sound? You know, who's gonna negotiate the lease? I guess that's something that, Nan, you would do, or you would do?
Yeah, mayor, trustee. So staff initially would vet, is this something in consultation with, obviously, you're the approval body to say, yeah, we're gonna do this or not, but the staff would do that to say, yes, this is a type of economic development we're interested in doing. Here's the benefit to the village. And here's, you know, at that point, here's what the payment in lieu of taxes is. It all works out. We're comfortable with this, but it is a staff level at that. On the legal documents, that's what we do. And we will make sure that the legal documents tie to exactly what you all agree to in the deal. And again, the company fully indemnifies the village, fully indemnifies all of you. There is zero financial liability on quote unquote this bond. There just is no recourse to the village at all. So again, in that scenario, you just deed the property back.
We deed the property back and then it goes into their
Right.
bankruptcy, is my understanding.
Right, so this is just a mechanism to provide this property tax abatement from an economic development standpoint to entice them.
Right.
And so if it doesn't work out, you simply put the deed back in their name and you're done with it.
Okay. I had one more question here, and that was,
I'm sorry?
Who pays off the bond?
So,
They're in year 3, they pay $3 million, they still owe $2 million, they go bankrupt. You give them the land, where's the $2 million for the village to pay off, to finish paying off the bond?
so mayor, trustees, there is no real money. So when you say 5 million, that's how much they're investing in the property.
Right.
So we tie the bond amount fictionally, not to say this isn't real, but to the par amount of this bond ties to what the company is investing. So this bond, unlike the GEO bonds, which produces to the village $6 million in cash to buy this property, this does not produce $5 million. This is just a papered transaction to comply with statute and the Constitution. So if there is a default and they don't live up to their end of the deal, there is no anybody that's owed. They may have a separate commercial loan or equity investors for this project. That is a separate transaction to the village, that if they don't satisfy that and the business isn't successful, again, you're back to just deeding the property back. Again, the important point being there is no actual 5 million generated that the village is generating and giving and getting repaid.
okay, hang on, David. So if we vote tonight to advertise it, where does it go from there?
Okay, so the process.
I mean, we're not gonna be ready next month to have a lease that's negotiable, that we're gonna approve, and, or will we, you think you'll be ready by next month, or how is that gonna work?
Yeah, so mayor, trustees, yes, so tonight, this is just a first reading. Obviously, we've heard a lot about it tonight, public transparency, everybody here's what's going on, we have a discussion, just to publish it, okay? And just have a first reading. The resolution that comes after this is just an inducement resolution to say the village is willing to consider this and to publish in the paper, hey, we're going to take action one way or the other at a set meeting date, whether that's September 13th or whether that's October, whatever. That's subject to however fast the village wants to move to do it, consistent with, obviously, the company has an interest, because once you do the inducement resolution, they technically can start thinking about purchases that gets them a gross receipts tax deduction. If the deal doesn't happen, they have to pay the gross receipts tax, but this at least allows them to start to plan it. Now, the lease agreement, generally, from my perspective, the deal terms, if they're in place, yes, we could have that done by September. But certainly there's no harm in doing it in October. They're probably, the company's thinking they'd like this done by the end of the year, so it's off the tax roll heading into tax year 2024. So there is certainly a window, and it's entirely up to the village how fast it wants to move. And then the company has to decide, is it worth waiting? Is it worth doing? This is a service, a benefit that the village is providing to the company in exchange for the company saying, you know, we're going to make an investment in the village. We're going to build this new facility. It's going to be on 2nd Street. It's going to look nice. I mean, those are the things you're thinking about. But there is no magic that it has to be September 13th. It does have a notice that says that. This is really you just authorizing a notice to go in the paper when you're ready to consider the ordinance, whether that's at the September meeting, October, November.
Mayor, trustees, if I could also add, this company is doing some development on the property. They already are applying to build a freezer and a loading dock. So that is actually already working its way through the process. So they've committed to coming to the village.
Okay, I have no further questions right now.
Okay, trustee Benavides.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is a bit confusing. So the value, the $5 million value is in what? There's no money exchange, you said?
Right. It is meant to, you want it is esoteric in some respects. You want the bond, the value of the bond, to tie to something material. So you basically put the value of the bond to what the company is thinking they're going to invest. So with Netflix, they thought, well, we could do actually up to $1 billion. And the city was like, yeah, it's too speculative. They felt comfortable saying you could do 500 million, and they did a deal based on 500 million, and that's what happened. Because that's how much money Netflix said they were going to invest into Mesa del Sol and how much production. Here, the company's saying, based on their application and what their lawyer's saying, is it's going to be $5 million to do this facility. So we make $5 million the value of the bond, so that it has a value tied to it that is realistic to the project. But there is no actual money generated from this bond. They either have $5 million in equity that they're going to use, they're borrowing $5 million from a commercial lender, or they have investors giving them $5 million. That's unrelated to what the city or the village is doing here. Not to get too far in the weeds, you can, in rare occasions, have the actual financing flow through the bond, but that's the rarity. Here, this is really just a structure to move the title to the property to the city or village, so that it's property tax abatement, provide for the gross receipts tax deductions, and the number is tied to what the company plans to invest.
The payment for the bond comes to the village?
So the way it works is the payments, say, let's just hypothetically 20 years, and so they say we're going to make 19 years of interest-only payments, and then at 20s, we're going to pay $5 million plus interest. And so there is a trustee, normally BOKF or formerly Bank of Albuquerque, and the company it has the company here, Clover Holdings LLC. They may create a separate LLC that is quote-unquote the purchaser of the bonds. And so then the company, under the lease, makes a hypothetical, it goes to the trustee, payment to the village annually that ties to what the bond would be, and it just flows straight within the company. Again, it is strange. It is not a bond in the traditional sense that money the village has is moving at all. It is a structure that allows for the property tax abatement.
So I'm sorry, so the payment does not go into our general fund or anything like that? Is that,
No. It would go from its sister corporation to the trustee. Well, that's the initial bond proceeds, but let's say payment. The company, Clover Holdings, would make, say, $150,000 annual payment of interest to the trustee under the lease, quote, the lease with the village, to pay lease payments, which ties to what they would owe to their sister company. And that money could flow in one day, and it never hits the village's books or anything.
okay, I'm not so, first I thought this was a pretty sweet deal. I'm not so sure how it's such a sweet deal anymore. So now, so the Clover Holdings would still go through all the P and Z process, right?
Actually, because this is less than 20% of the square footage of the property, it's just a freezer and a loading dock. It is publicly noticed, and so within 300 feet of the property, everybody got a notice. If there's an adverse comment, it goes to P&Z. Otherwise, it's administratively approved. That's per our code.
And the product, are they just doing packaging, or are they processing meat at the facility? Do you know?
I believe it's a full production facility.
You meaning they dry the meat there?
Dry package. And there will also be a small retail component. They're going to do ice cream and the beef jerky and some other items in the retail.
Well, the retail's fine, but so what's the benefit to the village?
Jobs, gross receipts. So we get gross receipts on the sales, remember?
The retail.
But not on, just, the only abatement is the property tax, correct?
Right, the gross receipts tax abatement is on the equipment for the initial.
Yeah, also the abatements on the equipment as well, and the building too, right?
Right, so if I can finish, the property tax abatement is for the real property and the building that normally would be taxed. And then the equipment, the personal property equipment, you're getting a gross receipts tax abatement when the initial purchase is. And then based on its depreciation over the 20 years, it is also abated on that depreciation for the equipment. So the benefit to the village, as Ms. Simon said, is employment, the gross receipts tax from the business activity, and this company investing in the community. It's totally an economic incentive. That is what it is.
How many jobs do they forecast?
I am not 100% sure. It's a small number, under 10. It's been a couple of months since I've spoken to the folks there. The other thing is if they sell out of state, that's money coming back into the community, into the region. It doesn't directly benefit the village, but it indirectly benefits the village. So it's just it's a company, it's a manufacturing and distribution company that we would want to encourage.
I just worry that we haven't heard enough public comment on this. Something as big as this, I think it's been in the works for a while, I would assume.
About a year.
Okay, and we're just now hearing about it, right?
Correct.
Not fair to us, I don't think. I'm not saying, and I know we're just talking about advertising, but I'm not so sure this is a good thing moving forward. I just don't know. What do you guys think?
And if I could just, the reason you haven't heard about it is because the company themselves are making all kinds of business decisions. They came to us to tell us that they were interested in that corner property. We said, great. It wasn't a matter to bring to the public or to the Board of Trustees at that time. They were getting their financing together. They were getting their layout and site development plan together. They were working with MEDA and the planning and zoning team. And then they decided to move forward with the IRB if we were open to helping them.
The location is like El Pueblo, close to Second Street, correct?
Yes.
It's right on the corner.
And so I don't know what homes are around there, but I would like to hear from those residents, I think.
So we did do a public notice, and I think, Danielle, it's, we have until the 16th to hear back from the notice.
Mayor and trustees, I'm not certain when the notice went out. If that's the case, if it was part of the other notices, it was the 14th, or it's coming up on the 14th.
That's it, it's the 14th. So around the corner, we'll be hearing.
I mean, I suppose they can go forward with or without the bond, if they so choose. Are you saying if they choose to go forward without the bond, there's no opportunity for public comment?
No, excuse me if I misspoke. The public comment is on the actual location, the addition of the freezer and the loading dock, not on the bond.
Well, I mean, so assuming that they go forward with, and they decide not to, regardless of the bond. So I think what you're saying is there's not much change to the property, so it doesn't go through the normal P&Z process. But so the public comment is just tell me how that works. How do we introduce this to the public?
So Mayor Trustee Benavides, are you asking how we introduce the IRB? Or how we introduce this new company into the village?
To the village, yes.
So the, all homes within 300 feet were noticed. And if we have one adverse comment, then it goes to P&Z. If we have no adverse comment, and it was all a mailed certified letter, so each home got the letter alerting them to this manufacturing facility, light manufacturing.
And it was sent, 300 feet?
Yes.
I have a few questions.
Okay, well, let's go to trustee Radnovich then. You're next.
So you've seen a site development plan?
Mayor Trustee.
We have, the village has.
The village has, I have not.
I would like to see the site development plan before. The business side of this makes perfect sense to me. I don't have any questions about that. It makes sense from an economic perspective and from a positive sort of business deal for the village. I have questions more about, so what this thing is, this thing is will be at the doorstep of the village. It's the first thing that some people will see as they come into the village. Is that loading dock right on the street? Where, I'd like to know about that.
Trustees, yes, I've seen it. I'm not trained to study them. The loading dock is on the south side of the building. So you don't see the loading dock when you come in.
The other thing is.
And it's improved parking lot, landscaping.
I'd like to see it before I vote on it. The other thing is, there are no neighbors within 300 feet of that place. The only neighbor, I think, is the reverend that lives across the parking lot from the church. I don't think there's any other residents. There's no residential. Sorry? Oh, across the street.
We sent out the letters, and we have gotten people interested in coming in to look at the application.
So, yeah, I would like to, as a trustee, I would like to see the application and the site plan myself.
Sure.
So this happened because they were already planning to do this. So they decided to see if they could sweeten the deal for both the village and for them by offering this, or by asking if we would agree to an IRB. Is the retail, so back to gross receipts tax for a minute. You said that they'll get a deduction on gross receipts tax. That's not from the village gross receipts taxes that would happen in the retail store. That's a very small part of this. That's from the gross receipts taxes for the construction and et cetera, all the stuff they have to do to get to the point where they can manufacture.
Yeah, so Mayor, trustees, in fact, they don't get a deduction for construction materials. So the brick and mortar building the building, they don't get a deduction. It's for equipping the building, the one time of equipping it, they
So
get
the
the deduction.
equipment-
So it's not the retail, and it's definitely not the construction. It's just purchasing equipment for its manufacturing process.
Okay, and how big is the only thing that we would get, the village, from the gross receipts tax perspective, is the sales of ice cream and jerky, right? Retail.
On the retail.
I get that. Yeah. And the other thing is, how big is this retail? Is it the size of the old Yanomoto's? Is it just a tiny little,
very
like,
small.
hole in the wall kind of thing?
I wouldn't call it a hole in the wall. It's a nice remodel.
Yeah, I don't have enough information on this to
Let me
really
make
vote.
let me make a comment. It's already 15 minutes till 11. There's still an awful lot on this agenda. All of you are asking questions and you're having trouble figuring this thing out. I recommend we reconvene this meeting. That's my recommendation. Otherwise, we're going to be here till after midnight. I can tell you that right now. That's where we're headed. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair. So if the village trustees would like to suspend the meeting at this moment and reconvene perhaps 1 week from today at 7 PM, I'm fine with that, but that's up to you people. It's up to you folks.
Mayor, if I
That
may.
way, go right ahead.
It is not uncommon to have, and here, I don't know, logistically, I've just gotten involved recently, but it's certainly not uncommon to ask the company to come in.
I think that would be
yes.
very
That was going to actually be another question.
Yeah,
of
so it's
mine.
certainly appropriate. This, a lot of times it's a preliminary step and everybody's like, okay, it's fine. And then they come in for the actual discussion of, but it's certainly appropriate to ask them at the inducement stage.
So I do have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Because even if we postpone the meeting, I'd like to think about this during that week, Mayor. Could they be talking to Bernalillo County or even the city of Albuquerque at the same time they're talking to us about this?
So, Mayor, trustee, the city of Albuquerque would be extremely unlikely because although the city, you can go 15 miles outside of your jurisdiction, there is comity between, C-O-M-I-T-Y, between municipalities not to do that.
Right.
That if it's within a separate village or a separate city, it's very rare. Actually, weirdly, the village of Los
County
Ranchos
then.
did one for the school, Bosque School, that was actually in the city of Albuquerque, but there were different reasons. So no, they're not talking to the city of Albuquerque. Bernalillo County, I honestly do not know.
Mayor and trustees, they are in the county and they are not interested in expanding that facility, so they wouldn't be interested in talking to the county.
And do you know why that is?
They don't like the location.
They have to drive across the ditch to go to their little.
I've seen it. Yeah, I know where it is, Loretta.
What is the
Well,
wish of the
I would-
trustees?
Well, wait, let me make
Go
a
right
comment
ahead.
here. I feel like we're getting off track. We're just talking about advertising. We're talking about, advertising's no more than just telling the company, we'll think about it. That's all we're saying.
Yep.
Is we think about it, What they're asking for, we get a small percent of the gross receipts they'd pay to the state.
Right.
So we get a small percent of that. We get a small percent of property tax. And this was a church that we got nothing for. So I personally don't see any problem with saying, sure, let's advertise it. Now, given that, bring the company in. Let's see the plat. Sure. But all it is just saying, hey, we want to be business friendly and we want to tell you we're considering.
I get that part.
Yeah, that's, to me, so I think we're getting off track by getting way ahead of some of your questions. I think we're just way ahead because we're not making any commitment. We're just telling them, we'll think about it. Let's work on a negotiation.
Well, they're
Let's see
not
what
way
they-
ahead, though, trustee. I'd like to know what we're dealing with here.
Well, yeah, no, I think before we're going to vote on anything,
Well, we are going to vote on something if we
Well,
vote on
not
it.
if we suspend the meeting.
well, but
I get that.
Okay,
Yeah, well, I disagree with
Well,
that.
we have a motion and a second, right?
yes, but you can amend your motion to suspend the meeting and reconvene 1 week from tonight at 7 PM, if that's the wish of the trustees.
You made the motion, right?
I did make the motion.
Trustee Lewis made the motion.
Yep. So-
Trustee
Lewis,
Benavides
are
second.
you wanting to make a decision tonight?
Just to advertise. I mean, it's so early in the stage. I mean, I want to meet the company. I want to know how it vets. I want to see how a lease starts to
Yeah, to
unfold.
the extent that mayor, trustees, the extent it's helpful, this does not obligate you to.
This is not what?
Obligate you to actually adopt the bond ordinance or enter into.
I get that, yep.
So on that, that's absolutely true. Also, this is no cost to the village. The company ultimately has to pay for any expenses, but I represent the village. So in particular, Trustee Benavides, I'm happy to sit down in more detail with you, not just about V-Hill beef jerky, but IRBs. It's weird. And so I get it's weird. So if you want to just have a phone conversation to go through it so you're comfortable just about the structure, great, let's do that. So that at least you feel comfortable about what it is.
That would be great. In fact, if you just sent me like a IRB for dummies or something like that. 2 sheets.
Well, it's my personal copy, so I'll need it back.
I'd like a copy also.
So Trustee Lewis, are you ready to amend your motion or not?
I am not.
Okay.
I
guess we're gonna
stand
vote.
by my motion to go ahead and just advertise.
Okay, so then at this point, we need to bring the public in front of the trustees. So let's start with Loretta Chavez Smith. Please come forward, state your name and address, give us your comments.
Again, Mayor, trustees, Loretta Chavez Smith, 536 Chavez Road, here in the village. We're talking about item number B under public hearing for this jerky manufacturing business. And you're saying that this is only going to be advertised, but under new business, they still want to put another resolution to do the bonds. Why are we doing this? Why don't we just finish and get all the information about this company before we come down to do a resolution? I don't understand. As far as this business goes, how much revenue are we gonna get from them? I mean, gross receipts for sales. They have a little tiny, let's see. Maybe where these seats are right here in this section. That's their store. They don't sell very much out of that. They do a whole lot of sales out of Costco. Do we get those revenues? Huh? Do we get those revenues? The gross receipts tax from that? We don't, do we?
No, they're not in the village right now.
But if they're in the village, will we get those gross receipts tax? No, we'll only get it from the little store, that little tiny store. How much revenue do they do out of that store?
We don't know.
See, that's what we need to find out.
That's why I'm suggesting a suspension so that we can gather more
I
information.
mean, I don't even
Have
think,
that company come
that's
in
why I'm
here
having a hard time
and show us what
dealing
they're
with the
doing.
fact of even advertising until we know what we're gonna advertise. Because we're out there saying, okay, hey, we're gonna do this.
No, we're not saying we're gonna do this.
We're
Don't
interested
start
in
putting
doing
words
this.
in our mouth, because we're not doing that.
No, that's what we're,
All we're saying is to this company, we'd like to take the next step and find out more about you and do these things.
okay, but we're gonna
But there's no
advertise it in the
obligation for
paper
them
that
to
we're gonna
come
do
in.
this. Why don't we talk to the
We're
company
not
first?
advertising that we're gonna do it.
Okay, your
Okay,
time is up,
thank
Loretta.
you.
Thank you. Now, there's one more name on this list, and I can't tell who it is. So did someone else sign up to speak on this? Is that you, David? Okay, come on up.
I was tired.
Yeah, we're all tired.
You know, one thing is, he said something that I hope doesn't get lost. It's a little unfair that you guys didn't get to see this prior. And if you knew about the industrial revenue bond idea, it should have been brought forward so that this had been a little bit easier for everyone. Because it is surprising, and it always seems like we're secretive here. And I don't get it. I understand about the Anderson $8 million. We wanted to keep it under the, under wraps. But this happens a lot. And we just shouldn't allow it. It shouldn't happen. We're a friendly village. We should just allow this because this does not sound like a bad deal to me. But why is it sprung on like this? Even to the trustees, it's just not right. Thanks.
Mr. Montoya, before you leave, would you mind stating your name and address for the record?
Sorry, David Montoya, 8831 4th Street Northwest.
Okay, the floor is now closed for comment. I'm going to call for the question. I'm going to call for the roll call vote. Trustee Lewis?
Yes.
Trustee Benavides?
Yes.
Trustee Radnovich?
Mayor, I am not ready to vote until we talk about the second part of this, because there's
Well-
two.
Understand. My question to the trustees, there's now 2 votes for, and if, no matter how you vote, it's going to pass. And
I
you
get
can
that.
abstain. Okay? So the motion carries.
I will vote yes for the advertisement.
Okay, thank you
I don't
very
know
much.
about the next.
Then the motion, now, my question to the trustees is, do you want to continue with this meeting tonight? I prefer that we reconvene, but I'm letting you guys make the decision.
I'm okay reconvening.
I'm
about next week?
okay reconvening because I feel like so many people end up going home.
Yes.
If we reconvene, it gives them the opportunity to come back and more people participate in our meeting.
So we're talking a week from tonight.
Yes, 1 week from tonight. Is everybody available at 7 PM? Because I certainly am.
I think so.
I'll need a motion to suspend the meeting at item 11.
All right, I gotta get my phone back.
Oh, shoot. I am not available that night. I'm going to be in
How
Las
about
Vegas.
Tuesday? Or Thursday?
Thursday probably better. I could do Tuesday if necessary.
How about you?
Thursday?
Thursday?
Thursday, the 17th? Hold on.
Okay, he's gonna tell us in a moment. Okay.
Yeah, Thursday would be fine.
Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday.
Okay. I need a motion to suspend the meeting at item 11 and reconvene the meeting at 7 PM next Thursday.
I'll make a motion to suspend that item at 11 o'clock and reconvene the meeting next week on Thursday, August 17th
At 7 PM.
at 7 PM.
I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the meeting is suspended. It is 10:56 PM. Thank you.
It is it seemed, to me, I think it's a good deal too, but I would